Chapter 2064. Invincible. Yi Xian's expression became strange. What the hell is this? He had been to the divine battlefield, but he did not see this person. In the distance, the man suddenly laughed. He smiled as he looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand. When this sword appeared in the divine battlefield, countless battle intents in my body instantly boiled. They thirsted for battle. Yi Xian glanced at the man. You are. The man laughed. God of War. Isn't the name I gave myself very domineering? Yi Xian, Xiao suddenly said. I finally met someone even weirder than Tian Yi. Yi Xian's face darkened. Let him go. Xiao. Yi Xian looked at the man and hesitated. From what I know, the 6 realms also have many experts. Why don't you go there directly? 6 realms. The man's eyes were filled with disdain. After I get rid of this sword maker, I will sweep across the 6 realms and show those ants what true power is. Yi Xian felt a headache. Why don't you sweep across the 6 realms first? The man looked at Yi Xian. What? That sword maker doesn't dare to come out? Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, Shall we fight? The man glanced at Yi Xian with disdain. You think you're worthy? Yi Xian, the man's expression gradually turned cold. I don't want to waste time with you. Hurry up and ask the sword maker to come out. Yi Xian did not waste any time. He suddenly disappeared on the spot. The next moment, a sword light slashed down from the man's head. Qing'er? He naturally would not do such a thing. Not everyone could see Qing'er. Seeing Yi Xian attack, the man frowned. How dare you attack me? As soon as he finished speaking, he clenched his right hand into a fist and then he punched forward. An extremely terrifying force swept out with this punch, and it also carried a monstrous battle intent. At this moment, Yi Xian's sword descended. Yi Xian was using the Azure Profound Sword. Facing this fellow of unknown origin, he did not dare to be careless and underestimate him. As Yi Xian slashed down with his sword, boom! An expanse of light suddenly erupted. In the next moment, the man was blasted over 10 kilometers away, and when he stopped, his right hand had split open and countless strands of blood sprayed out. The man was stunned. Yi Xian was also stunned. This guy's hand was crippled just like that? The man looked at Yi Xian in disbelief. You, Yi Xian said solemnly, are you too weak or am I too strong? The man, Yi Xian's expression became strange. It had to be said that he was really confused. He'd thought that this fellow was an expert, but now it seemed like this fellow wasn't an expert. In the distance, the man gazed at Yi Xian in disbelief. How could this be possible? This is absolutely impossible. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly leaped up and charged towards Yi Xian. When he arrived in front of Yi Xian, he suddenly clenched his left hand into a fist, and then he punched towards Yi Xian's face. As soon as he punched out, countless strands of battle intent surged out from his fist, and the space in the surroundings instantly seethed. Yi Xian didn't even think about it and he used his thumb to block lightly. The Azure Profound Sword slashed forward. Bang! The man didn't even have time to react before he was blasted flying, and he flew for almost 30 kilometers. When he finally stopped, his left hand had been directly torn apart. Now both of his hands were gone. In the distance, Yi Xian was slightly speechless. Damn it. I'd thought that this fellow was an expert, but it turns out that he's just a pretentious fellow. And he still wants to look for Qing'er? In the distance, the man was slightly dazed. How could this be? Yi Xian glanced at the man who was about to go mad. Did you cultivate wrongly? The man raised his head and looked at Yi Xian and roared furiously, Shut up, you ant. As he spoke, he actually charged towards Yi Xian once again. Yi Xian was slightly speechless. He used his thumb to block lightly once more and the Azure Profound Sword flew out again. This time it was even faster than before. In the distance, the man's pupils suddenly shrank. He was just about to attack when he shockingly realized that he couldn't do it anymore. The Azure Profound Sword pierced directly into the man's chest. Bang! In an instant, the man was directly nailed to the space. It's over. The man stared blankly into the distance. How is this possible? Yi Xian glanced at the man and frowned slightly. He also felt that something wasn't right. He had sensed the man's battle intent just now, and it was extremely terrifying, causing his heart to palpitate slightly. However, this guy's strength was abnormally weak. Was there a problem somewhere? At this moment the man's chest suddenly split open, and the next moment, a blood-red beating heart floated out slowly. That heart was filled with endless battle intent. Xian frowned slightly. Heart of battle intent? The man looked at the heart in front of him and his eyes were still blank. I've already condensed the heart of battle intent. Why is it like this? Why? At this moment Xiaota suddenly said, do you only absorb battle intent? The man looked at Xian. Is there a problem? Xiaota fell silent for a moment and said, you only absorb battle intent and don't cultivate your strength, right? The man was even more confused. Is there a problem? Xiaota sighed softly. You're really a talent. The man, Xian, was a little confused. Xiaota, do you know what's going on? Xiaota said, it's very simple. This guy has been absorbing battle intent for hundreds of thousands of years, but he doesn't cultivate. He only absorbs battle intent. This is like a guy who only cultivates moves and doesn't cultivate inner strength. Although he won't be weak, if he meets a real powerhouse he won't be able to withstand a single blow. Xian frowned slightly. This analogy is not suitable. Change it. Xiaota was speechless. He thought for a moment and then continued to say, simply put, this guy only absorbs battle intent but doesn't cultivate strength. His battle intent is very strong, but what's the use of just having a strong battle intent? If battle intent doesn't have a strong power to support it, it's very useless. It's just like how you only eat without eating vegetables. Xian frowned slightly. What the hell is this analogy? Xiaota was a little angry. I'm just a ta. Xian. In the distance the man suddenly said with a trembling voice, Did I cultivate wrong? Xian looked at the man. You didn't cultivate wrong. You didn't cultivate at all. The man, Xian, was also a little speechless. There's actually such a person who absorbs battle intent every day and doesn't cultivate at all? He absorbed enough battle intent. But what's the use? He's putting the cart before the horse. The man suddenly looked at Xian. What about me? Xian thought for a moment and then said, that's easy. This heart of battle intent of yours isn't very useful to you, but you can give it to me. I'll help you develop it. Hearing this, the man said angrily, you want to steal my heart of battle intent? Don't you dare. Xian's green profound sword suddenly disappeared between the man's brows. The man froze on the spot and couldn't move. In the next moment his soul started to be absorbed by the green profound sword. The man glared at Xian angrily. How can you do this? Xian said seriously, you're the one who came to me. The man. When he saw that the man intended to say something, Xian waved his right hand, and the green profound sword completely absorbed the man's soul. After he absorbed the man's soul, Xian opened his palm, and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. After that he gazed at the heart of battle intent and said softly, how do I use this thing? Xiaota said, just absorb it directly. Absorb it directly. Xian thought for a moment, and then a strand of sword intent enveloped the heart of battle intent. In the next moment the heart of battle intent entered his chest. Bang! In an instant, boundless battle intent erupted from Xian's body. Xian's eyes opened wide, and his entire body started to tremble violently. In next to no time the boundless battle intent was absorbed by Xian. He'd comprehended battle intent in the past, but the battle intent he'd comprehended was truly too weak when compared to this battle intent. There was no comparison at all. Moreover, even though he'd comprehended battle intent in the past, he'd started to focus on sword intent later on. So his battle intent wasn't strong at all. Xian entered Xiaota's body directly, sat down cross-legged, and then activated the energy of his bloodline. Because he noticed that the battle intent was truly too terrifying, and his body was slightly unable to endure it. So he had to suppress it with the energy of his bloodline and absorb it slowly. Just like that, time passed bit by bit. After an unknown period of time, the battle intent around Xian gradually calmed down. At this moment he'd absorbed more than half of it. 3 days later. Sitting on the ground with his legs crossed, Xian suddenly opened his eyes. The space-time in front of him was boiling. Battle intent. At this moment he had completely absorbed the battle will heart. After absorbing the battle will heart, his own heart became the battle will heart. Needless to say, Xian was extremely excited at this moment. because the battle intent was truly formidable. After he absorbed it, his overall strength had improved by at least a level, and this battle intent would be one of his trump cards when he fought others in the future. The battle intent that he'd absorbed for hundreds of thousands of years. At the thought of this, Zhou Xian couldn't help but burst out laughing. This was simply too exhilarating. As if he'd thought of something, Zhou Xian opened his palm, and the azure profound sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment, an extremely terrifying battle intent enveloped his entire body, and the azure profound sword in his hand began to tremble slightly under the support of the battle intent. Fight. At this moment, Zhou Xian's eyes gradually turned scarlet. It wasn't because of his bloodline, but because once the battle intent was activated, it would make one want to fight uncontrollably. At this moment, even he himself felt that he could fight Qing. When he realized this, Zhou Xian was shocked and he quickly retracted the battle intent. Damn it! This battle intent can make people feel smug. Now he finally understood why that man was so smug. There was a big reason for this battle intent. Chapter 2065. After withdrawing his battle intent, Zhou Xian felt his mind become clearer. That battle intent could really affect a person's mind. At this moment, Xiaota suddenly said, "Young master, do you want to go to the Milky Way to play?" Zhou Xian frowned slightly. "Why do you want to go to the Milky Way?" Xiaota hurriedly said, "Go to play. It's fun there. Moreover, Sister Tianming is there too, don't you want to see her?" Zhou Xian smiled. "Xiaota, you are the one who wants to see Qing." Xiaota was silent. Zhou Xian was a little curious. "You want to see Qing, so that she can help you modify it?" Xiaota softly sighed. "Yes. I am completely your cultivation room now. I don't have any sense of existence. To be honest, I am not very happy. I don't want to become like the prison pagoda, slowly forgotten." Prison pagoda. Zhou Xian was stunned, then said, "I don't know if you don't tell me, I still have the prison pagoda." Prison pagoda. Xiaota softly sighed. "When needed, the pagoda is a treasure. When not needed, the pagoda is just a blade of grass." Tragic. Zhou Xian suddenly said, "I remember that there are still 3 levels of the prison pagoda not opened." 3 levels. Xiaota asked, "Young master, do you want to open it? With your current strength, opening it should be a piece of cake." Zhou Xian thought for a moment, then smiled. "Not opening it." Xiaota did not understand. "Why?" Zhou Xian laughed. "Leave it for my son to open." Xiaota was silent for a moment, then said, "You." Awesome. Zhou Xian did not choose to go to the Milky Way in the end. Why go to the Milky Way now? He did not have time to play. After leaving Xiaota, Zhou Xian headed straight to the 6 realms. Regarding the 6 realms, he had obtained some information from Han Jiang. However, it was not much because Han Jiang had never been to the 6 realms. As the name suggested, the 6 realms was a universe formed by 6 worlds. Each world had a superpower. As for the status of those mercenary groups in the 6 realms, he didn't know. Therefore, he didn't know the overall strength of the 6 realms. Meanwhile, the tiny pagoda said abruptly, "Young master, you seem to still not have summoned the energy of the universe until now." Zhou Xian smiled and said, "With my current strength, do I need to borrow power?" Xiaota hesitated for a while, then said, "Little Lord's words have become unyielding now. I hope you will always be strong." Zhou Xian was speechless. Zhou Xian didn't waste any more time talking to the small tower. He increased his speed and used the Xianxia sword to travel through space and time. But even so, he still spent almost half a month to arrive at the 6 realms. The 6 realms were the Ancient Realm, God Realm, Netherworld, Heavenly Realm, Meru Realm, and Spirit Realm. As soon as Zhou Xian arrived in the 6 realms, a woman appeared before him. Zhou Xian was slightly stunned and surprised when he saw this woman. This woman was none other than Nan Ning. Nan Ning looked at Zhou Xian and didn't speak. Zhou Xian smiled lightly. "Miss Nan Ning, are you here to pick me up?" Nan Ning frowned slightly. "What makes you think I'm here to pick you up?" Zhou Xian smiled embarrassedly. "So you're not here to pick me up?" Nan Ning glanced at Zhou Xian. "What are you doing in the 6 realms?" Zhou Xian smiled. "To experience the 6 realms." Nan Ning fell silent. Zhou Xian blinked. "Am I not welcome?" Nan Ning's face was expressionless. "The 6 realms aren't mine, so what right do I have to not welcome you?" Zhou Xian smiled. "Miss Nan Ning, can you introduce the 6 realms to me?" Nan Ning's expression was calm. "What do you want to know?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "What's the name of the number 1 mercenary group?" Nan Ning frowned slightly. "Why are you asking that? Could it be that you want to join that mercenary group?" Yi Xian smiled. "No, I'm just curious." Nan Ning didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Nan Ning, I think you're waiting for me here for something, right?" Nan Ning glanced at the surroundings and said, "Let's go somewhere else." As she spoke, she turned around and left. Yi Xian smiled and then he followed her. Nan Ning led Yi Xian into a teleportation channel, and it didn't take long for the two of them to travel swiftly through the spatial tunnel. Yi Xian asked, "Where are we going?" Nan Ning said, "The ancient plane." Yi Xian nodded slightly and was about to ask something, but the two of them had already left the spatial tunnel, and then an enormous ancient city appeared before them. The ancient city was situated between 2 mountains and there was an ocean in front of it. It was impossible to see the end of the ocean. Nan Ning suddenly said, "The ancient city is the largest city in the ancient plain, and it's the territory of the ancients. The ancients have occupied the ancient city for almost 10 million years, and their resources are unimaginably deep." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he asked, "Miss Nan Ning, what level of existence does your mercenary group belong to in the 6 realms?" Nan Ning glanced at Yi Xian. "Take a guess." Yi Xian's face instantly darkened. Nan Ning didn't answer Yi Xian's question and she just led Yi Xian to the city gate. She opened her palm and a small bag flew to the guard at the gate. The guard skillfully put away the bag and let them pass. After entering the city, Nan Ning suddenly said, "You can cause trouble here but don't provoke the ancients." "If you provoke them," Yi Xian suddenly asked, "if they provoke me, what should I do?" Nan Ning glanced at Yi Xian. "If you have a backer and that backer is stronger than the ancients, then you can kill him." Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he nodded. "I understand." Nan Ning said, "It's good that you understand. You better keep a low profile here." After saying that, she quickly walked into the distance. At this moment, Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young lord, I feel that your understanding and her understanding are not the same. Do you want to communicate with her again?" Yi Xian was speechless. Soon Nan Ning brought Yi Xian to a small building. The building wasn't tall and it only had 3 floors. After entering the small building, a delicate and pretty lady welcomed them, and she bowed slightly to Nan Ning. "Captain." Nan Ning nodded slightly and then she led Yi Xian upstairs. Soon Nan Ning brought Yi Xian to a small pavilion. From the window of the pavilion they could see the streets below and the scenery was pretty good. Nan Ning sat down and she looked at Yi Xian. "Can you tell me why you're here?" Yi Xian sat opposite Nan Ning and then he said, "I want to see a stronger expert." Nan Ning looked at Yi Xian and she didn't say anything. Yi Xian smiled. "Miss Nan Ning, don't look at me like that, I'll feel a little embarrassed." Xiao Ta was speechless. After a moment of silence, Nan Ning said, "Young Master Yi, I can't see through you." Yi Xian smiled slightly. "Miss Nan Ning, why do I feel that you're very wary of me?" Nan Ning looked at Yi Xian. "You're not an ordinary person but you give me the feeling that you're bragging. I really can't understand you, are you really awesome or are you just bragging?" Yi Xian was speechless. At this time the delicate and pretty lady from before came in with 2 cups of spirit tea. She put the spirit tea on the table and then she quietly retreated. Yi Xian glanced at the delicate and pretty lady, and he found that the strength of this delicate and pretty lady was actually Prakrit transformation. Prakrit transformation. Damn. Prakrit transformation was already everywhere in this place. Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. At this time Nan Ning said again, "Young Master Yi, who are you? Where did you come from?" Yi Xian smiled and then said, "Miss Nan Ning, why are you so curious about me?" Nan Ning pointed at the sword in Yi Xian's hand. "This sword of yours is very unusual." Yi Xian blinked. "Miss Nan Ning, I just want to understand the 6 realms. If you're not willing to tell me, it's all right, I'll ask someone else." After saying that, he got up and left. Nan Ning frowned slightly. "Young Master Yi." Yi Xian ignored her and directly walked out. At this time, the delicate and pretty lady suddenly blocked in front of Yi Xian, and she looked straight at Yi Xian. "Leader is calling you." Yi Xian looked at the delicate and pretty lady. "Get out of my way." The delicate and pretty lady looked straight at Yi Xian, without the slightest intention of giving way. Not only that, her eyes were filled with undisguised condescension, just like a human looking at an ant. Yi Xian suddenly used his thumb to lightly push. The green profound sword was suddenly unsheathed. The pretty lady's eyes instantly narrowed at the instant that the sword was drawn. She hadn't expected that Zhou Xian would actually attack in a place like this. However, her reaction was extremely swift and she slapped her palm forward lightly. It was very light and it seemed like it was made of cotton. Bang! An expanse of sword light suddenly erupted. In an instant the entire pavilion was directly shattered and obliterated, whereas that delicate and pretty woman was directly slashed into a mysterious space-time abyss by Zhou Xian's sword strike. Not only that, but the right hand that she used to collide head-on with Zhou Xian had even shattered. A single sword strike had shattered her hand. The pretty lady was slightly dazed. She hadn't expected that her right hand would actually be gone just like that. Zhou Xian. Meanwhile, Nan Ning suddenly appeared in front of Zhou Xian, and she stared fixedly at Zhou Xian. What's the meaning of this? Zhou Xian's expression was calm. Miss Nan Ning, I've come with you because I want to find out about the 6 realms from you, not to be interrogated by you. Of course, I won't force you if you're unwilling to tell me. But why is your subordinate stopping me? What does she want to do? Nan Ning stared fixedly at Zhou Xian. Then you attacked? Zhou Xian nodded. Is there a problem? Nan Ning's eyes narrowed as she looked at Zhou Xian, and a ghastly cold light flickered in her eyes. Zhou Xian walked over to Nan Ning and grinned. Miss Nan Ning, to be honest, I don't know why things have developed to this state. Really, I merely wanted to find out about the 6 realms from you. Of course, it would be good if we could be friends, but it seems like that won't be possible now. As he spoke, he glanced at the pretty lady in the distance. I really don't like the look in your eyes. Besides that, you don't have the right to look down on me like that. If you look at me like that again, believe me, it'll be the last time you look at me in this lifetime. With that, he turned around and left. P.S. I've exploded before. Please vote. Chapter 2066. As soon as Zhou Xian left, the woman clenched her right fist tightly. Obviously, she still intended to attack. Even though Zhou Xian was formidable, Zhou Xian's cultivation was very low, so others would subconsciously look down on him. Right at this moment, Nan Ning suddenly looked at the pretty woman and shook his head. The woman hesitated for a moment before she let go. Nan Ning looked at Zhou Xian. Young Master Yi. However, Zhou Xian paid no attention to her and vanished into the distance. Nan Ning frowned slightly. The woman walked over to Nan Ning's side and spoke in a low voice. Leader, who is he? Nan Ning fell silent for a moment before she said, a fellow of mysterious origins. The woman's expression was calm, but a cold glow flashed through her eyes. What gives him the right to be so arrogant? Nan Ning shook her head slightly and remained silent. She looked out the window with a trace of worry in her eyes because Zhou Xian's origins were truly too mysterious. She'd investigated Zhou Xian through various methods, but she hadn't found any clues. Meanwhile, a middle-aged man in black armor appeared here, and he looked at Nan Ning and spoke in a low voice. Young miss, is someone causing trouble? Nan Ning shook her head slightly. It's nothing. You may leave. The man hesitated for a moment before he turned around and vanished. Nan Ning gazed at the woman. Pay attention to him in secret and don't offend him. The woman nodded slightly. Yes. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished. Nan Ning gazed into the distance while a trace of bewilderment flashed through her eyes. That sword. After Zhou Xian left, he walked directly towards the depths of the city. The ancient city. Zhou Xian sized up the surroundings. The buildings in the surroundings were suffused with an ancient aura, and there were some extremely obscure and formidable auras in the city as well. There were quite a number of experts in the city. However, Zhou Xian was quite curious. Would there be experts above the embodiment transformation realm in the city? With that question in mind, Zhou Xian walked towards the depths of the city. Not long after he walked, Zhou Xian suddenly stopped. He turned around and saw a man looking at him from afar. Seeing this man, Zhou Xian was stunned. He recognized this man. He was He Yan, a member of the Divine Young mercenary group. However, at this moment He Yan's physical body had already recovered. Upon seeing Zhou Xian, He Yan was slightly taken aback. Evidently, he did not expect to meet Zhou Xian here. Zhou Xian smiled. Brother He Yan, what a coincidence. He Yan's expression was a little strange. Zhou Xian walked to He Yan and smiled. Brother He Yan, what are you doing here? He Yan hesitated for a while, then said, accept the job. Zhou Xian furrowed his brows. Work. He Yan nodded. Yi Xian looked behind He Yan. Behind him there was a task board with many notices. Yi Xian was a little curious. He walked to the front of the mission board and glanced at it. Then he realized that the rewards for these missions weren't low. One of them was to escort a person, and the reward was actually 22 star veins. 22 veins. Yi Xian pointed at the mission board excitedly. Brother He Yan, could this be a scam? He Yan glanced at Yi Xian. No, because in order to post the notice, you have to pay a 30% deposit to the Mercenary Association. Moreover, after you complete the mission, if the other party breaks the contract, you will be attacked by all the mercenaries. Even the 6 major forces wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Yi Xian looked at He Yan. Mercenary Association? He Yan pondered for a moment, then said, an organization formed by various large mercenaries. Yi Xian nodded. He looked at the mission board. At this moment He Yan shook his head. You can't accept this job. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Why? He Yan sighed in a low voice. Do you know who posted this mission? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't know. He Yan said, it's the spiritual realm princess, but she's the previous one. Not long ago there was a change in the spiritual realm. The old spiritual king fell for unknown reasons. Originally, the spiritual realm princess was supposed to inherit the throne. However, the second in command of the spiritual realm, Elder Ling Tian, suddenly announced that he would inherit the throne and control the spiritual realm. Thus, the spiritual realm princess escaped to this ancient realm. And she posted this mission in the hope that someone would escort her to the faraway spiritual palace temple. Yi Xian frowned. The spiritual palace temple? He Yan nodded. That is a very sacred place to the spiritual realm. If she goes there, even if Ling Tian had 100 guts, she wouldn't dare to attack the living beings of the spiritual realm. However, she definitely won't let the spiritual realm princess go there. After all, as long as the spiritual realm princess is alive, it's a threat to her rule. After all, she's the rightful successor. Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he said, the reason the spiritual realm doesn't come to the ancient realm to capture her is because they have a conflict with the ancient realm? He Yan nodded slightly. The ancient realm and the spiritual realm have always been on bad terms. Because the ancient clan once captured many living beings of the spiritual realm, the two clans even fought in the past and almost went to an all-out war. Although it calmed down in the end, these two forces have always been at odds. Yi Xian roughly understood when he heard this. The ancient clan obviously wanted the spiritual realm princess to stay here to annoy the spiritual realm. However, the ancient clan would absolutely not fight the spiritual realm to the death just for the spiritual realm princess. Meanwhile, He Yan suddenly asked, why are you here? Yi Xian withdrew his thoughts and smiled. I'm here for a stroll. He Yan glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Meanwhile, the mission posted by the spiritual realm princess on the mission panel suddenly vanished. Both of them were slightly stunned. Meanwhile, a new mission appeared on the panel, and it was posted by the spiritual realm princess. However, both of them were stunned when they saw the contents of the mission. The mission hadn't changed, but the reward had. The reward had changed from 22 star veins to 52 star veins. 52 star veins. Both of them thought that their eyes were playing tricks on them when they saw the number. 52 star veins. Yi Xian gazed at He Yan, and the latter hesitated for a moment before he said, Brother Yi, farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished. More and more divine senses appeared here. Obviously, the reward announced by the Radiant Realms princess had tempted countless experts. Yi Xian glanced at the mission invitation and he was a little shocked. 52 star veins. That was absolutely a huge sum. Perhaps some would be tempted and take the risk. There would definitely be brave men under such a great reward. Right at this moment, He Yan, who'd left earlier, appeared once more. Yi Xian gazed at He Yan and was about to speak when He Yan spoke first. Brother Yi, our leader invites you to meet him. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Bai Yi. He Yan nodded. Yes. Yi Xian smiled. What does he want me to do? He Yan smiled embarrassedly. I don't know. Young master, you will know once you get there. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he said, then you lead the way. He Yan was overjoyed when he saw Yi Xian agree and he hurriedly said, Brother Yi, please. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Under He Yan's lead, Yi Xian arrived at a black hall. After entering the hall, Yi Xian was stunned. At this moment there were 4 people in the hall and he knew 2 of them. They were Bai Yi and Nan Ning. Besides them, there was a fat man who wore a loose and luxurious robe. His belly was so big that it seemed like he'd been pregnant for 10 months. Beside the fat man was a man in black clothes. The man held a slender jade flute in his left hand, and there was a faint smile on his face. After bringing Yi Xian to the hall, He Yan left. Bai Yi suddenly stood up and walked in front of Yi Xian and he smiled, "Welcome." Although they were enemies in the past, it was because of their interest. But now there was no conflict of interest between them. Yi Xian smiled. "Leader Bai Yi, did you ask me to come here because of the spiritual princess?" Bai Yi nodded, "Yes." As he spoke, he sat at the side and then looked at Yi Xian. "Please sit." Yi Xian sat on one of the seats and he glanced at the fat man and the man in black clothes. At this moment the 2 of them were also looking at him. At this moment Bai Yi suddenly explained, "Brother Yi, these 2 are the leader of the Tuanzi mercenary group Fatty Dragon, and the leader of the Divine Pavilion mercenary group Xianxia." Tuanzi mercenary group. Fatty Dragon. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression instantly became a little strange. This fat guy actually came up with such an interesting name. At this moment Fatty Dragon looked at Yi Xian and he smiled, "Brother Yi, if you think it's funny you can laugh out loud, haha." Yi Xian smiled, "Your name is indeed interesting." Fatty Dragon glanced at Yi Xian and he smiled, "I wonder who Brother Yi is?" As he spoke he looked at Bai Yi. Bai Yi glanced at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian. Yi Xian." There was only one word. Hearing this, Fatty Dragon frowned slightly. At this moment Bai Yi suddenly said, "Everyone, what do you think about the spiritual princess mission?" Xianxia smiled, "It's very tempting but it's very risky. Moreover, as long as we leave the city, that person from the spiritual realm will definitely besiege us at all costs. With just us mercenary groups, we won't be able to withstand the crazy counterattack of the spiritual realm." Fatty Dragon nodded slightly. The reason why the spiritual princess suddenly increased the remuneration, there must be some movement from the spiritual realm. As he spoke he looked at Nan Ning. Nan Ning was silent for a moment and he said, "As far as I know, the spiritual realm is already negotiating with the ancient race, but I don't know the details." At this moment Xianxia suddenly smiled. "Unless they are also willing to join, we won't be able to complete this mission with just the few of us." Everyone was silent. Naturally, they were referring to the number 1 mercenary group. Bai Yi suddenly looked at Yi Xian. "Brother Yi, what do you think?" Hearing this, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, in the next moment, he seemed to have felt something and he directly turned and disappeared from the hall. In the hall, everyone was a little confused. What was going on? Inside the hall, Bai Yi and the others looked at each other, their faces full of doubt. Outside the hall, Yi Xian was running on his sword and within his body Xiao Ta said anxiously, "Young lord, quick, go to the left, quick, faster, Yi Xian." Chapter 2067. Yi Xian was running on his sword. He was doing this because of Xiao Ta. Of course he didn't know what Xiao Ta had sensed. Xiao Ta was only telling him to run in that direction. Although he was puzzled, he chose to believe Xiao Ta. After all, although Xiao Ta wasn't reliable, he wouldn't make such a joke. At this moment, an invisible barrier suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian frowned and was about to attack. Xiao Ta quickly said, "Don't." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Lil Tower, what did you discover?" Xiao Ta said, "Someone is asking Little White for help." Yi Xian frowned. "Asking Little White for help?" Xiao Ta said, "Yes. It's not far away from you." Yi Xian looked into the distance. There was an illusory white palace below him. Yi Xian was about to step forward when the space in front of him trembled slightly. Then a woman in black armor showed up in front of him. It wasn't a human. It was a spirit. As for what kind of spirit it was, Yi Xian didn't know. The woman looked at Yi Xian with hostility in her eyes. At this moment the tendo mark on Yi Xian's forehead lit up. The woman was stunned when she saw the tendo mark and then she asked, "You are?" The hostility in her eyes had vanished. Yi Xian said in his heart, "Xiao Ta, what should I say?" Xiao Ta said after a moment of silence, "Ask her who's asking Little White for help." Yi Xian looked at the woman. "Who's asking Little White for help?" The woman frowned. "Little White." Xiao Ta's voice sounded in Yi Xian's mind. "It's the spirit patriarch." Yi Xian said, It's the Spirit Patriarch. Spirit Patriarch. Hearing this, the woman's eyes instantly narrowed. At this moment, vigilance appeared in her eyes. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from below. Since he has the mark of the Tendo, he is not a bad person. Let him in. The armored woman hesitated for a moment before looking at Zhou Xian. Please. Under the guidance of the armored woman, Zhou Xian arrived at a large white hall. Inside the hall stood a woman. She wore a long snow-white dress and her long hair draped over her back. Her body emitted a faintly discernible wave of spirit qi. Princess of the spirit world. When Zhou Xian saw the woman in front of him, he guessed her identity. The spirit realm princess looked at Zhou Xian. You are? Zhou Xian asked in a grave voice. Are you seeking guidance from the Spirit Patriarch? The princess was slightly stunned and then she said, How do you know? Zhou Xian asked in his heart. Xiao Ta, how did you know? Xiao Ta spoke indifferently. I'm best friends with Whitey. Thank you. Zhou Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, the spirit realm princess who stood before Zhou Xian said, Who are you? Zhou Xian restrained his thoughts and gazed at the spirit realm princess. He was slightly speechless. If he said that the Spirit Patriarch belongs to me, then I wonder if he would be beaten up. He knew that Whitey had an extremely high status in the hearts of these spirits. Suddenly, Xiao Ta appeared in front of Zhou Xian, and he floated over to the Spirit Realm Princess. Have you contacted Whitey? Whitey. The Spirit Realm Princess hesitated for a moment before she said, There's no response. Xiao Ta said, How did you contact her? The Spirit Realm Princess withdrew a white box. Xiao Ta fell silent for a moment before he said, You've met Whitey? The Spirit Realm Princess spoke in a low voice. She left this for my father all those years ago and then my father gave it to me. Xiao Ta sighed in a low voice. Since you were able to make Whitey keep this box, then it proves that you should have a good relationship with her. Since that's the case, why don't you just ask Master for a strand of sword energy? Isn't that safer than this box? Don't you know that since Whitey and Arya went to the Milky Way galaxy she's become fancier? She's unreliable now as well. Zhou Xian was speechless. The Spirit Realm Princess frowned slightly. Sword energy? Xiao Ta fell silent for a moment before he said, She didn't respond? The Spirit Realm Princess nodded. Yes. Xiao Ta said in a low voice, She might not have time to care about you now. The Spirit Realm Princess was slightly puzzled. Why? Xiao Ta said, Because Sister Tianming has gone there. I'm afraid her life with Arya isn't very good. The Spirit Realm Princess was even more puzzled. At this moment Xiao Ta suddenly floated over to the box and then he lightly knocked on the white box. The box trembled slightly, and then a strand of dazzling light erupted from it. In the next moment the space in front of it trembled slightly, and it wasn't long before an illusory little white fellow appeared in front of everyone. Whitey. The Spirit Realm Princess's expression instantly changed when she saw Whitey, and she hurriedly bowed deeply. Whitey glanced at Xiao Ta and Zhou Xian, and then she pouted and seemed slightly aggrieved. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment and asked, What's wrong? Whitey waved its little claws swiftly. Zhou Xian felt a headache coming on. How could he understand it? He immediately looked at Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta fell silent for a moment before he said, She said that Arya was beaten up by Sister Tianming. Zhou Xian's expression froze. Meanwhile, the Spirit Realm Princess suddenly looked at Whitey, and then she bowed deeply again and said, Spirit Ancestor, please save her. Whitey looked at the Spirit Realm Princess. She hesitated for a moment and then pointed at Zhou Xian. The Spirit Realm Princess was puzzled and was about to ask something. At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the screen and then the screen disappeared. The Spirit Realm Princess's expression froze. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment and then looked at Xiao Ta. Qing'er won't act recklessly, right? Xiao Ta said in a low voice, I don't know. Zhou Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta said again, I don't think so. Sister Tianming won't deliberately go to the Milky Way to beat Arya. She must have some other purpose for going there. Zhou Xian shook his head and smiled. That's good. He still had a good impression of Whitey and Arya. At this moment Xiao Ta said, When Whitey disappeared just now she asked you to help her. Zhou Xian looked at the Spirit Realm Princess. Her? Xiao Ta said, Yes. Zhou Xian had a headache. How can I help her? Xiao Ta said, Do as you see fit. Xian was speechless. He found that he couldn't help her. Whitey's matter was equivalent to the Yang family's matter. There was nothing wrong with that. Xian looked at the spirit realm princess and hesitated. Princess, Whitey is in some situation now. She can't come here for the time being. Why don't I send you to the spirit palace? The spirit realm princess looked at Xian. You know the spirit ancestor? Xian nodded. Of course. After all, we are a family. The spirit realm princess was speechless. Xian said again, did something happen when you asked Whitey for help just now? The spirit realm princess nodded. I just got the news that this Ling Tian may be trying to persuade the ancient world. Once she really convinces the ancient realm, then. At this point she didn't say anything else. Xian said in a deep voice, you sent out a mission before and asked someone to send you to the spirit palace. Will you be safe if you go there? The spirit realm princess nodded. That is a place left by the spirit ancestor. As long as I enter that place, the Ling Tian won't dare to do anything to me. Xian was puzzled. Why? The spirit realm princess said, because when the spirit ancestor created that place she set a ban there. She forbade any spirit from killing each other. If there is a violation, all the spirits in the world can kill them together. Xian said in a deep voice, does her order not work in other places? The spirit realm princess nodded. Strictly speaking, it doesn't work. Because when she spoke, she only said it was in the spirit palace. Xian suddenly asked, if she says that the spirits in the world can't kill each other, will you abide by it in this place? The spirit realm princess was silent for a long time before she said, if she is here, everyone will abide by it. If she is not here, Xian smiled bitterly. But she is not here now. So, if you go to the spirit palace, the Ling Tian might also attack you, right? The spirit realm princess shook her head. No. As long as you go there, the Ling Tian definitely won't dare to do anything because that is the residence of the spirit ancestor. No matter how bold she is, she won't dare to do anything in the residence of the spirit ancestor. Even if she does, she won't be afraid. Because once she does, it means that she doesn't respect the spirit ancestor. At that time, even the experts of the spirit realm won't respect her anymore. Xian thought for a moment and said, if the spirit ancestor is here and she says she wants you to be the king of the spirit realm, you can be the king of the spirit realm, right? The spirit realm princess glanced at Xian and nodded. Yes. Xian's expression froze. At that moment Xiaota suddenly said, young master, you still don't quite understand Xiaobai's position in the hearts of the spirit realm. How should I put it? Xiaobai's position in the hearts of the spirit realm is like. Xian frowned slightly. Like what? Xiaota fell silent for a moment and said, like rice in the eyes of a mouse. Xian's expression immediately darkened. Big brother, I beg you. Can you change the analogy? Xiaota said angrily, young master, how long will it take for you to understand that I'm just a tower? Tower. I'm just a tower. Xian was speechless. Xiaota continued, in any case, Xiaobai is very sacred in the hearts of the spirit realm. No spirit dares to disobey her. Moreover, if she is willing to help a spirit, she can greatly increase the upper limit of that spirit's growth. Of course, the most important thing is that she can also easily destroy a spirit. Before her, the spirit ancestor is completely powerless. She can absolutely suppress her. Xian said softly, she's that fierce. Xiaota said, not just ordinarily fierce. So what the princess said is right. As long as you go to the spirit palace, that Ling Tian won't dare to do anything to her. No matter how powerful she is, she definitely won't dare to disrespect Xiaobai. Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, we are Xiaobai's friends. That Ling Tian won't dare to do anything to us, right? Xiaota thought for a long time and then said, in theory that should be the case. But I feel like there's something wrong. Xian asked, what's wrong? Xiaota thought for a long time and said, there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Xian said, then there doesn't seem to be any problem. Xiaota nodded. There's no problem. Let's do it. I had a dream yesterday. I'm number 1 on the monthly votes. I got up and saw. I decided to continue dreaming. Chapter 2068. Let's do it. Xian looked at the spirit realm princess and smiled. Do you know the spirit palace shrine? The spirit realm princess nodded. Of course. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Princess, I have a way to take you directly to the Spirit Palace Shrine, but I need your cooperation. The Spirit Realm Princess looked at Yi Xian. How do I cooperate? Yi Xian walked in front of the Spirit Realm Princess and then he opened his palm. Put your hand in mine and then think of the Spirit Palace Shrine. I'll take you there directly. Hearing this, the Spirit Realm Princess was stunned. At this moment, the woman in black armor immediately stood in front of the Spirit Realm Princess, and she looked at Yi Xian with an unfriendly gaze. At this moment, the Spirit Realm Princess suddenly said, "Step back." The woman in black armor hesitated for a moment, and then she retreated to the side. The Spirit Realm Princess looked at Yi Xian. He has the Tendo's mark, which proves that he is not a person with dirty thoughts. I believe him. As she spoke, she walked in front of Yi Xian, and then she put her right hand in Yi Xian's hand. It felt warm in the hand. Yi Xian looked at the Spirit Realm Princess. Think of the location of the Spirit Palace Shrine. The Spirit Realm Princess nodded slightly, and then she slowly closed her eyes. At this moment, Xiao Ta's voice suddenly sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Young master, it seems that we don't need to hold hands to feel where the other person wants to be, right? Yi Xian said in his heart. It's none of your business. Xiao Ta was speechless. Before long, Yi Xian suddenly said, It's done. The Spirit Realm Princess looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian looked at the woman in black armor. Do you want to take her with you? The woman in black armor was speechless. The Spirit Realm Princess nodded. Yes. Yi Xian nodded slightly. He opened his palm and the Xianxia sword appeared in his hand. In the next moment he disappeared on the spot with the two women. However, when the three of them entered the space-time tunnel, their expressions instantly changed. The next moment an extremely terrifying force suddenly descended from the sky, directly suppressing Yi Xian and the other two. Rumble. The three of them returned to their original positions. Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the horizon. In the distant horizon he could faintly see a woman, and that woman was currently looking down at the three of them. The Radiant Dimension Princess spoke in a low voice. Ling Tian. Yi Xian glanced at the woman standing on top of the clouds with a solemn look in his eyes. Unfathomable. With his current strength, very few people could give him this kind of feeling, but this woman gave him this kind of feeling. Not simple. At this time Ling Tian coldly glanced at Yi Xian, then turned around and disappeared. The Spirit Realm Princess looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian felt a headache coming on. He never expected that she would be able to obstruct him in the space-time tunnel. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked at the Spirit Realm Princess. Do you trust me? The Spirit Realm Princess nodded slightly. I do. Yi Xian said, Don't resist. As he spoke, a mysterious force enveloped the Spirit Realm Princess. The latter was slightly stunned, but she really didn't resist. In the next moment she entered Xiao Ta's body. As soon as she entered Xiao Ta, both the Spirit Realm Princess and the woman in black armor were stunned. Yi Xian paid no attention to them. He glanced at the sky and then he turned around and left. As soon as he turned around, he vanished without a trace. Yi Xian left the ancient city and headed towards the divine hall of the Spirit Palace. Stowaway. He didn't choose to go head-on against Ling Tian. Because she wasn't alone and she had the Radiant Dimension behind her. Even though he wasn't weak right now, he didn't think that he could go head-on against a Radiant Dimension. After he left the city, Yi Xian completely concealed his aura. However, he hadn't walked for long when an extremely terrifying force suddenly surged out from the space in front of him. Yi Xian's pupils constricted abruptly and he flicked his thumb lightly. Boom. A sword howl resounded as the green profound sword slashed forward. The space in front of him was directly torn apart, and the powerful force was instantly sent flying by him. At this time, a jade-like finger directly touched the tip of Yi Xian's sword. Boom. The green profound sword trembled violently, and Yi Xian retreated tens of thousands of feet with his sword. After Yi Xian stopped, a flame and lightning suddenly appeared behind him. This flame and lightning was like a sharp blade that directly tore the space behind Yi Xian and slashed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes slightly, and the green profound sword suddenly flew out from his sheath. The green profound sword directly slashed at the flame and lightning. Rumble. A burst of flames erupted. At this time, a white fist suddenly blasted in front of Yi Xian. At this time, it was too late for the green profound sword to return to its sheath. However, Yi Xian's expression was very calm, and another sword appeared in his sheath. It was an ordinary sword. Yi Xian gently flicked his thumb. The sword was unsheathed, and behind this sword there were 6 more swords. 6 consecutive swords. When the first sword slashed the fist mark, the sword immediately exploded and the fist mark continued to penetrate. One by one the swords were shattered. There was no way to block this fist at all. In the end, all 6 swords were destroyed. At this time, Yi Xian's green profound sword was already sheathed, and the next moment the sword was unsheathed. Boom! The fist was directly shattered by the green profound sword. Yi Xian lightly tapped the tip of his toes and he retreated several thousand feet. He looked into the distance and not far away stood a woman in a white dress. It was that Ling Tian. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. "What the hell are you?" Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What the hell?" Ling Tian stared at Yi Xian. "Hand her over." Yi Xian said in a deep voice. "I don't know what you're talking about." Ling Tian's brows furrowed slightly. "Where did you hide her?" Yi Xian frowned deeply. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Ling Tian stared at Yi Xian for a moment, and the next moment she suddenly disappeared from the spot. From afar, Yi Xian squinted his eyes, and with a gentle flick of his thumb, the green profound sword flew out. Boom! A white light suddenly exploded in front of him. A shadow retreated thousands of feet away. It was that Ling Tian. Ling Tian looked at the green profound sword in Yi Xian's hand and slightly frowned. "What sword is that?" Yi Xian looked at Ling Tian, and his eyes had a trace of seriousness. This woman in front of him was actually able to resist his green profound sword. It was a little terrifying. Meanwhile, Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. "Who are you?" Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he decided to be reasonable. "Elder Ling Tian, do you know the spirit ancestor?" "The spirit ancestor." Ling Tian's eyes instantly narrowed when she heard this. "You know the spirit ancestor?" Yi Xian nodded. "I do. I'm on the same side as the spirit ancestor." Ling Tian stared at Yi Xian for a moment and then she said, "No, you don't know the spirit ancestor." Yi Xian wanted to say something else, but Ling Tian suddenly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, countless mysterious and terrifying forces appeared in the surroundings, and these forces shot directly towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian was shocked and he swiftly drew his green profound sword and swept it horizontally. Bang! An expanse of light erupted in front of him and in an instant the space in front of Yi Xian turned pitch black. Meanwhile, 2 fingers were pointed at his green profound sword. Bang! The green profound sword shook violently, and then a powerful force passed through it and struck Yi Xian. Rumble! Yi Xian was instantly blasted over 10 kilometers away, and as soon as he stopped moving his entire body fell into an expanse of white space. Yi Xian frowned slightly, and then his pupils constricted as he hurriedly drew his sword and slashed. "Draw your sword to decide life and death." Bang! An expanse of light suddenly erupted in front of Yi Xian. Rumble! An explosion suddenly resounded in this expanse of white space, and then Yi Xian was blasted back again. As he retreated, the white space in the surroundings suddenly trembled, and then strands of strange energy seeped out from within it. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. This energy wasn't the energy of space, so his green profound sword couldn't disregard it. Meanwhile, the princess' voice resounded in Yi Xian's mind. "This is spiritual energy. Be careful." Spiritual energy. Yi Xian didn't have the time to think. He took a step forward, and then an expanse of light enveloped the space around him. The core sword domain. Countless rays of light flashed horizontally and vertically within the core sword domain, and it was an extremely shocking sight. However, the rays of light were gradually vanishing. They couldn't resist the spiritual energy at all. Yi Xian's brows knit together tightly. He had no other choice but to activate his bloodline energy. Because he would probably be instantly transformed into nothingness if he allowed the spiritual energy to approach him. As soon as he activated his bloodline energy, Yi Xian raised his thumb lightly, and then a blood-red sword suddenly slashed forward. The sound of something tearing resounded as the spiritual energy in front of Yi Xian was torn apart. At the same time, the green profound sword slashed down towards Ling Tian. Ling Tian had a calm expression on her face. When the green profound sword arrived before her, she suddenly pressed her fingers together and pointed forward, and then a ray of white light appeared on the tip of her finger. Bang! She pressed her finger against the green profound sword, but Ling Tian frowned in the next moment. Because the ray of white light on the tip of her finger was actually dimming at a visible speed, and Ling Tian hurriedly withdrew her finger when it was about to vanish completely. In the next moment her figure shook and she was 3 kilometers away when her figure appeared once more. Meanwhile, the green profound sword had arrived before her again. Ling Tian advanced instead of retreating. She took a step forward and pressed 2 fingers forward. When her fingers touched the green profound sword, her fingers suddenly slanted and missed the tip of the sword. After that, she pressed her fingers together and swept them horizontally against the green profound sword. Bang! The powerful force she exerted blasted the green profound sword flying. In the next moment she'd appeared in front of Yi Xian, and then she tapped her finger towards the center of Yi Xian's forehead. If it were to hit, then Yi Xian's head would instantly explode into pieces. Yi Xian hadn't expected that she would actually be able to blast the green profound sword flying. He didn't have the time to feel shocked before he tapped his thumb lightly once more, and then another blood-red sword flew forward. Moreover, he'd executed 9 successive attacks. 9 consecutive attacks. Moreover, without the green profound sword, Ling Tian chose to go head-on against Yi Xian's 7 attacks. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Ling Tian's eyes, and then she directly tapped her finger against the sword in the lead. Bang! In an instant the sword in the lead shattered into pieces. At the same time, an extremely terrifying and formidable force swept out from the tip of her finger, and then the remaining 6 swords were instantly transformed into nothingness. In the next moment her finger shot straight towards Yi Xian. On the other hand, Yi Xian's eyes had closed slowly in the distance. At the same time, the green profound sword had returned to its sheath. Chapter 2069. When it arrived in front of Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. Battle intent. The energy of his bloodline. At this moment, Yi Xian hadn't just activated the energy of his bloodline, he'd even activated his boundless battle intent. As soon as his battle intent appeared, Yi Xian's bearing had instantly undergone a tremendous change. Yi Xian tapped it lightly with his thumb. Boom! A sword howl suddenly resounded, and then a ray of light slashed forward. Bang! Ling Tian was instantly blasted over 10 kilometers away, and her entire right hand had cracked apart when she stopped moving. Moreover, the space around her had been obliterated as well. She'd endured the terrifying force of Yi Xian's attack, but the space around her hadn't been able to endure it. After Ling Tian stopped moving, she gazed at Yi Xian, and her brows were knit together slightly while a trace of a solemn and surprised expression could be seen in the depths of her eyes. "Who exactly are you? Why are you interfering in the matters of my radiant dimension?" Needless to say, she was quite shocked right now, because the strength of Yi Xian's battle intent had slightly exceeded her expectations. She didn't remember such a formidable swordsman existing in the 6 dimensions. Where did this fellow come from? Yi Xian glanced at Ling Tian and smiled. "Elder Ling Tian, can we talk?" Ling Tian gazed at Yi Xian with a calm expression. "What do you want to talk about?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Can you spare the princess?" Ling Tian shook her head. "No." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "I think that it's best if you don't touch her." Ling Tian stared at Yi Xian. "Are you threatening me?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I'm being kind. The princess is able to communicate with the spirit ancestor, and the spirit ancestor has ordered me to protect her." Ling Tian fell silent for a moment before she said, "You know the spirit ancestor?" Yi Xian nodded. Ling Tian shook his head. "She must die." Yi Xian frowned. "Why are you so stubborn? Aren't you afraid of the spirit ancestor?" Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. "I'm scared." Yi Xian was about to speak when Ling Tian said, "But she's not here, is she?" Yi Xian's expression froze. Ling Tian continued, "I can feel that you have the Tendo's mark in your body. In other words, you have been acknowledged by the Tendo. You said that you know the spirit ancestor and I believe you. Because of this, I don't want to kill you." Yi Xian looked at Ling Tian. "Can you kill me?" Ling Tian nodded. "If you don't believe me, we can give it a try." Yi Xian laughed. "Let's give it a try then." As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his thumb, and the green profound sword suddenly flew out from its scabbard. This sword carried a powerful aura, sword force, bloodline power, and battle intent. In the distance, Ling Tian's expression was calm. She raised her right hand slowly and pressed it down lightly. Bang! Xian's green profound sword suddenly stopped on the spot. Its aura and strength were still there, but it didn't move. Xian was shocked when he saw this because he realized that he had lost contact with the green profound sword. Right at this moment, Ling Tian suddenly vanished mysteriously. Xian frowned. In the next moment he felt his vision go white and he had been brought to a strange space-time. Xian glanced at the surroundings. It was a vast expanse of whiteness and he couldn't see anything. Meanwhile, the spirit realm princess spoke in a low voice. This is the white space, an extremely dangerous space-time. Time passes extremely quickly here, and a day here is equivalent to 10 years in the outside world. Moreover, the space-time here is reversed, and your lifespan is flowing away at least 100 times faster than the outside world. Coupled with the special characteristics of this place, it won't be long before you perish on this spot. Xian's face instantly fell when he heard this. A day is equivalent to 10 years in the outside world. This was the complete opposite of the small pagoda's function. It didn't take long for Xian's expression to change, because he noticed that something seemed to be flowing away from within him. The spirit realm princess spoke in a low voice. It's your vitality. You have to leave this place as soon as possible. Vitality. Xian glanced at the surroundings and tried to sense the green profound sword. However, he couldn't sense it at all. The green profound sword seemed to have lost its connection with him. Xian's face fell, but he didn't think too much about it. He took a step forward and then he lightly pushed with his thumb. Suddenly, a sword flew out from the sheath. An expansive sword light shot out like a waterfall. A hole was torn open in front of Xian, but it was still white. Xian frowned when he saw this. If he had the green profound sword, then he was confident in his ability to leave this place. After all, the green profound sword disregarded all space-time. Unfortunately, he'd lost contact with the green profound sword. Xian fell silent for a moment before he attacked once more. This time he swung his sword a few times in succession, and formidable sword energy tore through the surroundings. However, no matter how he tore, he was unable to completely tear open the space here. Even if he entered the hole, he was still within the white space. At this moment, he noticed to his astonishment that his hair had turned white. His vitality was really flowing away at a rapid pace. If it was merely a single day here that was equivalent to 10 years in the outside world, then he could persist for a long time with his current lifespan. However, the problem was that there was a counterforce here and it was speeding up the loss of his vitality. Right at this moment, Xian suddenly frowned. He'd thought of something. A day here was equivalent to 10 years in the outside world, and 10 years in Xiaota was equivalent to a day in the outside world. What if I enter Xiaota's body? Xian didn't think too much about it and directly entered Xiaota's body. As soon as he entered Xiaota's body, his eyes closed slowly. A long time passed before the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, because he noticed that he'd returned to normal. The vitality within his body wasn't flowing away anymore. It was even. Xian heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, and then he gazed at the radiant princess and said, "How long can she maintain this space in the outside world?" The radiant princess fell silent for a short moment before she said, "It can't last long. It consumes a huge amount of energy to maintain it." Xian nodded slightly. "Then we'll just have to wait." The radiant princess looked at Xian and didn't say anything. Xian suddenly asked, "What kind of space is the white world space?" The radiant princess said in a deep voice, "It's a very special space. It's completely different from the space we normally stay in. Only an elite at the level of Ling Tian can open it." Xian said in a deep voice, "Is she incarnate bliss?" The radiant princess shook her head. "No." Xian was a bit curious. "Is she above incarnate bliss?" The radiant princess nodded. Strictly speaking, she is above the circle drawer because incarnate bliss is also a circle drawer. However, when incarnate bliss breaks through again, she becomes a world breaker. The so-called world breaker is to break the wall of time and space and explore a brand new space. The standard of a world breaker is to explore the white world space. Not only that, but she also needs to be able to enter it. An elite at the level of Ling Tian can not only enter but also use this kind of space. Xian nodded slightly. I understand. The radiant princess suddenly said, was the space in Xiaota created by the spirit ancestor? Xian shook his head and smiled. No. The radiant princess was slightly stunned and said, no? Xian nodded. The radiant princess hesitated and said, the space in this place is even more terrifying than the white world space. It should be said that it's of a higher level. Xian was a bit puzzled. Why? The radiant princess said in a deep voice, the time in the white world space is smooth. It follows the flow of time. However, the time in Xiaota is reversed. Xian frowned slightly. Smooth? Reverse? The radiant princess nodded. Xian hesitated and said, can you tell me more about it? The radiant princess glanced at Xian and explained, you stay in the white world for a day, which is equivalent to 10 years passing outside. The flow of time here is smooth. However, it speeds up time, but it follows the flow of time outside. If you stay in Xiaota for 10 years, only one day has passed outside. This is equivalent to the time in your space reversing the flow of time outside. It's not very difficult to follow, but it's very difficult to reverse. Someone used a great magical ability to forcibly change the flow of time here. This is very terrifying. Very terrifying. Xian smiled slightly. So that's how it is. The radiant princess glanced at Xian and didn't say anything. At this moment Xian suddenly raised his head. The next moment he disappeared. After leaving Xiaota, Xian returned to his original position. At this moment the white world spacetime had disappeared. Not far in front of him was Ling Tian. Ling Tian looked at Xian. How did you do it? She had to say that she was really shocked at this moment. Very shocked. Because she didn't expect that the guy in front of her would ignore the flow of time in the white day spacetime. How did he do it? Xian's heart suddenly moved. The next moment the green profound sword appeared in front of him. He had lost contact with the green profound sword before, but the sword hadn't been taken away by Ling Tian. The power of the sword was still there, but it was suppressed by Ling Tian in some mysterious way. However, it could only be suppressed for a while. Xian inserted the green profound sword into the scabbard and looked at Ling Tian. How did you enter the white world spacetime? He originally wanted to study the white world spacetime, but unfortunately when he came out the white world spacetime had disappeared. Of course he only dared to study it with the green profound sword. He was also very afraid of the white world spacetime. Ling Tian looked at Xian. You answer my question first. How did you survive in the white world spacetime? Xian frowned slightly. Is the white world spacetime scary? Ling Tian's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Isn't it scary? Xian smiled slightly. I don't think it's scary at all. Actually, it's quite fun. Speaking of this, he looked at Ling Tian. Elder Ling Tian, can you open the white world spacetime again? I want to go in and play. Ling Tian looked at Xian and didn't speak. Xian said seriously. Really, I want to go in and take a look. Just open it and let me go in and play. Ling Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Are you pretending? Xian. P.S. I bought something and there was a problem. Then I found that the after-sales service was too bad. I suddenly thought that the readers who read my book are my customers. Then I'm being fancy every day. It's a bit disrespectful to the readers. But I update slowly. I just want to accompany you more. I'm afraid that if I update quickly I'll finish writing. At that time, without your company, what's the point of my life? I just want you to accompany me a little more. Can you understand me? Chapter 2070. Xian was speechless. In fact, he really wanted to go in and study the white world. He had the green Xian sword so he could ignore the power of time flow inside. If his research was successful, wouldn't that mean he would have the power of a break world? At this time Ling Tian suddenly said, Swordsman, why do you want to protect that woman? Xian looked at Ling Tian. It's not me who wants to protect her. It's the spirit ancestor who wants to protect her. Ling Tian shook his head. The spirit ancestor is kind. He doesn't know how sinister people can be. No, in the spirit ancestor's heart she thinks all spirits are kind, but that's not the case. Xian frowned. What do you mean? Ling Tian looked at Xian. Do you know why I want to kill her? Xian said in a deep voice. Don't you want to take the throne? Ling Tian was expressionless. She told you that? Xian shook his head. I heard it from someone else. Ling Tian continued to ask, Do you believe what someone else says? Yi Xian was speechless. Ling Tian continued to say, you don't know the whole story. Yi Xian frowned. So, there's another reason? Ling Tian said, you should know that spirits are kind by nature. Why didn't the spirits of the spirit world stop me when I wanted to kill her? Not only that, but they also helped me. Yi Xian was silent. He really hadn't thought in that direction. In the distance, Ling Tian was about to speak. At this time, something strange happened. Yi Xian's face suddenly changed. The next moment, a very scary power exploded from his body. Boom. Yi Xian's whole body was sent flying. He flew hundreds of thousands of feet away. And when he stopped, there was a hole in his chest. At this moment, the undying bloodline in his body began to work frantically. Yi Xian was a little stunned. After a moment, he raised his head and looked into the distance. The Spirit Realm Princess was standing there, and at this moment Xiao Ta was in her hands. Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, I've been kidnapped. Should I panic? Yi Xian looked at the Spirit Realm Princess. You've surprised me. The Spirit Realm Princess smiled. Mr. Yi, it's you who surprised me. Yi Xian smiled faintly. I was blind. The Radiant Princess smiled and said, young Master Yi, I never expected that you would actually be able to survive such a heavy injury. Oh, so you possess two special bloodlines. Yi Xian's left thumb gently pressed against the green profound sword. At this moment, the Princess of the Spirit Realm shook her head. Don't waste your strength. You can't kill me. As she said that, she looked at Xiao Ta in her hands and the corners of her lips lifted slightly. This pagoda is really mysterious. If it wasn't for this pagoda, I really wouldn't want to take the risk of becoming enemies with you. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, since you like it, then I'll give it to you. Xiao Ta was speechless. The Spirit Realm Princess glanced at Yi Xian, and then she turned to look at Ling Tian. Ling Tian, it won't end just like that. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly became ethereal. Ling Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she pressed her right hand forward lightly. As soon as she did, the space around the Spirit Realm Princess warped. However, the Spirit Realm Princess still vanished on the spot. Ling Tian frowned slightly. In the next moment, she smashed her fist forward. The space in front of her was torn apart, and then a fist entered the torn space. A short moment later, a huge bang resounded from the depths of that space, and then that expansive space was restored in an instant. Ling Tian's face instantly sank when she witnessed this scene. Ling Tian gazed at Yi Xian. Her injuries have actually completely recovered. Did you help her? Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, she probably recovered on her own. Ling Tian spoke in a low voice, that's absolutely impossible. It's impossible for her to recover in such a short period of time. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled, she really did recover on her own. Because 10 years in Xiao Ta's body is equivalent to a day in the outside world. Ling Tian was stunned when she heard this, and then she said, you used that method to survive in the white space? Yi Xian nodded. Ling Tian's face immediately fell. Swordsman, you've caused great harm to my radiant dimension. As soon as she finished speaking, she turned around and vanished into the horizon. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he chased after her. On the way, Yi Xian looked at the extremely gloomy Ling Tian beside him. Elder Ling Tian, what exactly happened? Ling Tian spoke calmly. She killed the upper realm's radiant dimension lord. Not only that, she also devoured the previous radiant dimension lord. Yi Xian was stunned. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. She's a devouring spirit. She can devour creatures of the same kind. And she was also adopted by the previous radiant dimension lord. No one expected her to do this. And we didn't expect her to have hidden herself so deeply. She had already reached the breaking realm so early. As she spoke, she shook her head slightly. That's not the most terrifying thing. The most terrifying thing is that after she devoured the previous radiant dimension lord, she didn't completely digest the energy. Once she digested it, her strength will become even more terrifying. Originally, she didn't have time to digest it. Moreover, when she escaped from the radiant dimension, she was seriously injured by us. And now she has your shout. This means that she can digest the energy of the previous radiant dimension lord in a very short time. Sigh. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, I'm sorry. She can summon the spirit ancestor, so I thought she was a good person. I didn't expect her to be a white lotus. Ling Tian's expression was complicated as she sighed softly. At that moment the space-time in the distance suddenly trembled. Then some spirits appeared in front of them. The leader of the spirits was a woman. The woman bowed slightly. "Elder, we couldn't stop her. She has already reached the spirit palace." Ling Tian nodded slightly. "I know." As she spoke, she was silent for a moment before she turned around and left. Xian was stunned, then quickly stood in front of Ling Tian. "Aren't you going to the spirit palace?" Ling Tian looked at Xian. "Do you know about the spirit palace?" Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, "I heard from her that it's a place left behind by the spirit ancestor. It's also the place where the spirit ancestor used to live, right?" Ling Tian nodded. "If she enters it, we can't do anything to her. Because the spirit ancestor left a ban there. We can't fight there, let alone attack spirits. Otherwise, all the spirits in the world can attack us." Xian said in a deep voice, "Let all the elites of the radiant dimension follow us to the spirit palace." Ling Tian looked at Xian. "What do you mean?" Xian said softly, "I'll take care of the spirit ancestor." Ling Tian looked at Xian. "Are you sure?" Xian nodded. "I'm sure." Ling Tian immediately turned to look at the woman not far away. "Let all the spirits who have reached the free transformation realm go to the spirit palace." The woman hesitated. "Elder Ling, that's the spirit ancestor." Ling Tian pointed at Xian. "He'll take care of the spirit ancestor." The woman looked at Xian, hesitated for a moment, then turned and left. Ling Tian looked at Xian. "Let's go." With that, she turned and disappeared into the distance. Xian also hurried to follow him. Not long later, the two of them arrived at the spirit palace, God Palace. There were 12 other spirits with them. Among them, 10 were at the peak of the incarnation realm. Not only that, but 2 of them were like Ling Tian. They were world breakers. Xian looked at the spirit palace in front of him. The spirit palace was a pure white hall, and inside the hall, there was an extremely pure spirit qi. In front of the hall there was a statue. When he saw the statue, Xian's expression suddenly became strange. Because this was the statue of his father. On his father's shoulder there was Whitey. At that moment the spirit princess suddenly appeared at the entrance of the hall. She looked at Xian and Ling Tian and smiled. "Ling Tian, do you want to fight here?" After a moment of silence, Ling Tian looked at the spirit princess. "Why?" The spirit princess blinked. "Why what?" Ling Tian said in a deep voice. "She treated you so well, why did you treat her like that?" The spirit princess smiled. "Because I want to improve." Ling Tian frowned. "That's it?" The spirit princess nodded. "That's it." Ling Tian shook her head. "She's not worth it." The spirit princess smiled. "Ling Tian, not only do I want to absorb her, but I want to absorb the entire spirit realm. Just you wait." With that she turned and left. At that moment Xian suddenly said, "Elder Ling Tian, do it." Ling Tian looked at Xian. "Are you sure?" Xian nodded. "I'm sure." Ling Tian suddenly disappeared on the spot and went straight for the spirit princess. The powerful fluctuations of power directly caused the entire spirit palace's hall to tremble violently. The spirit princess looked at Ling Tian with a faint smile on her face, but she did not make a move. The moment Ling Tian entered the spirit palace's hall, an extremely terrifying spiritual power suddenly locked onto Ling Tian, and the next moment, boom. Ling Tian directly retreated tens of thousands of feet away. When Ling Tian stopped, a huge white halo appeared in the sky above the spirit palace's hall. The halo slowly rotated, and within it an extremely terrifying spiritual power was contained. The array left by Whitey. Ling Tian looked at the array with an extremely solemn expression. It was left behind by the spirit ancestor. The expressions of the spirit realm experts by her side were extremely solemn as well. One of the experts spoke in a low voice. "Elder Ling Tian, we can't make a move here." The other powerhouses from the spiritual realm also nodded. The spirits were extremely afraid of this place. Ling Tian looked at Xian. Xian fell silent. He hadn't expected that Whitey would actually leave her array here. In the distance, the spirit princess looked at Xian and the others before the spirit palace's hall, and then she grinned. "Come on, let's continue." Xian glanced at the spirit princess, and then he looked up at the array in the sky. In the next moment he appeared directly in front of the array, and then he opened his palm. A strand of bloodline energy surged out from his hand. As soon as the bloodline energy appeared, the array trembled slightly, and then it automatically vanished in the next moment. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. The spirit princess looked at Zhou Xian and her eyes were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? Zhou Xian glanced at the spirit princess. Didn't I tell you that Whitey belongs to my family? Xiao Bai belongs to my family and you still want her to protect you? Are you retarded? The spirit princess stared fixedly at Zhou Xian. Your family? Are you kidding me? As she spoke, she opened her palm and a strand of sword energy appeared in her hand. The expressions of all the spirits here changed drastically at the moment this strand of sword energy appeared. Ling Tian hurriedly said, "Be careful. That's the sword energy left behind by the spirit ancestor protector. It's extremely powerful and it can easily kill world breakers." Zhou Xian. Chapter 2071. Zhou Xian was speechless. Sword energy. He was truly speechless when he saw the spirit realm princess take out that strand of sword energy. He really didn't want to put on an act. However, she wanted to give it to him. Zhou Xian withdrew his thoughts, patted his sleeves and looked at Ling Tian. The spirit patriarch's guardian? Ling Tian glanced at the statue of the man in green clothes in the distance. He's the spirit patriarch's guardian. Don't you know? Zhou Xian glanced at his father's statue and thought for a moment. Seemed to be true. His father was Little White's guardian. That wasn't wrong. Meanwhile, the spirit realm princess suddenly smiled. Why aren't you attacking? Ling Tian looked at the spirit realm princess. You only have a strand of sword energy. The spirit realm princess said with a smile. It's indeed only a strand of sword energy, but can you block it? Can you? Zhou Xian glanced at the spirit realm princess and frowned slightly. How did my father's sword energy fall into her hands? The spirit realm princess looked at Zhou Xian. Do it. Zhou Xian nodded. All right. As he spoke, he was about to attack. However, Ling Tian suddenly stopped him and Ling Tian stared at him. Do you know what sword energy that is? It was given to the previous realm lord by the spirit patriarch's guardian, and it's the spirit realm's greatest trump card. Not to mention you, even I can't resist that strand of sword energy. Zhou Xian looked at the spirit realm princess and spoke furiously. She's too arrogant. Ling Tian spoke in a low voice. She has the ability to be arrogant. Zhou Xian was about to speak when the spirit realm princess suddenly smiled. It seems like you still don't know how terrifying that strand of sword energy is. Do you want me to explain it to you in detail? Zhou Xian smiled. It's fine. As he spoke, he walked towards the spirit realm princess and he spoke as he walked. Come on. Activate that strand of sword energy in your hand. The spirit realm princess looked at Zhou Xian without saying a word. This strand of sword chi was her greatest trump card. She had actually wanted to scare Zhou Xian, but she had never expected that this fellow would actually not be afraid. Was he retarded? Meanwhile, Zhou Xian said, Come, let me witness the sword energy of the spirit patriarch. The spirit realm princess looked at Zhou Xian. Do you think I wouldn't dare? Zhou Xian said angrily. If you dare, then activate it. The spirit world princess stared at Zhou Xian. Do you know what this wisp of sword chi is? Zhou Xian flew into a rage. Do you know who I am? I am a swordsman. In this world, in terms of the sword Dao, if I claim to be number 2, who would dare to claim to be number 1? All the spirits. The spirit realm princess's expression was terrifyingly dark. Ignorant human, do you know what kind of existence the spirit patriarch protector is? It is an existence that surpasses world breakers. Zhou Xian interrupted the spirit realm princess. Don't talk to me about that. Hurry up and activate it. Hurry up. The spirit realm princess coldly looked at Zhou Xian. Then she turned to look at Ling Tian. Aren't you going to talk to this idiot about this sword chi? Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian and said, if he wants you to activate it, then activate it. He isn't afraid, so what are you afraid of? The spirit realm princess's expression became even uglier. Using the sword chi on this idiot? That was a waste. At that moment Zhou Xian suddenly said, why are you so sentimental? If you don't use it, then I will. As his voice fell, he gently raised his thumb and the deep green sword flew out. The sword chi tore through and slashed at the spirit realm princess. The spirit realm princess squinted her eyes. Since you want to die, then I will fulfill your wish. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and the strand of sword chi in her palm was activated. In the next moment the sword chi flew out. In the distance Yi Xian withdrew the deep green sword. When the strand of sword chi arrived in front of him he didn't dodge at all. Everyone watched as the strand of sword chi stopped between Yi Xian's brows. All the spirits here were stunned. The spirit realm princess stared fixedly at Yi Xian with eyes filled with disbelief. Meanwhile Yi Xian opened his palm and the strand of sword chi fell into his palm. The sword chi trembled slightly as if it was trying to express something. Yi Xian gazed at the spirit realm princess, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. That's it? The spirit realm princess's expression instantly became unsightly when she witnessed this scene. This? How could this be possible? Yi Xian put the strand of sword chi away and then he smiled. You actually intended to use sword chi to kill me. Don't you know that I'm a swordsman? Moreover, I possess the invincible sword physique that's 1 in a million. So, can anyone's sword harm me? You're really naive. The spirit realm princess suddenly gazed at the statue of the man in green clothes, and then she gazed at Yi Xian. What's your relationship with him? Yi Xian frowned slightly. What's your relationship with him? I don't know him. The spirit realm princess stared fixedly at Yi Xian. After a short moment she spoke in a low voice. You're his descendant. At this moment she discerned it. Yi Xian's appearance was slightly similar to the spirit ancestor's protector. Coupled with Yi Xian's earlier statement that he knew the spirit ancestor, it was obvious that Yi Xian was the descendant of the spirit ancestor's protector. They were in cahoots. In the distance Yi Xian spoke with a serious expression. I really don't know him. The spirit realm princess took a deep glance at Yi Xian, and then she turned around and fled. Yi Xian immediately said, Stop this woman. Ling Tian and the other spirits vanished on the spot. Boom. Suddenly numerous loud explosions resounded in the distant sky. Yi Xian chased after them as well. Because Xiao Ta was still in the spirit realm princess's hands. If the spirit realm princess were to escape and cultivate in Xiao Ta's body for a period of time, then who would be able to resist her? At an unknown expanse of space in the distance, Ling Tian and the others had stopped the spirit realm princess. They didn't waste their breath at all and they immediately attacked. When Yi Xian rushed over, the green profound sword in his hand instantly flew out. The expression of the spirit realm princess who was fighting Ling Tian in the distance instantly changed drastically, and then she swiftly turned around and smashed her fist forward. A white fist swept forward and smashed directly onto Yi Xian's green profound sword. Bang! The white fist was instantly blasted apart, and the sword slashed straight at the spirit realm princess. The spirit realm princess's eyes narrowed slightly. She opened her palm and raised it lightly, and then a white shield appeared in front of her. Rumble! The enormous shield blocked the green profound sword, but it shattered as well. Meanwhile, the radiant princess had already retreated over 30 kilometers away. However, she'd been surrounded by all the spirits. The spirit realm princess glanced coldly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said abruptly, All the spirits I've encountered are basically good, so why are you an exception? To think that I even fought Elder Ling Tian desperately for your sake. You deceived my feelings. The spirit realm princess spoke indifferently. Did I ask you to help me? I don't think I ever asked you to help me, right? You took the initiative to help me, so what does it have to do with me? Yi Xian's face was filled with astonishment. Fuck. Are you even human? The spirit realm princess remained expressionless. You were the one who meddled in my business. What does it have to do with me? Yi Xian gave her a thumbs up. You're the most shameless spirit I've ever seen. The spirit realm princess's expression was calm. What's the point of having shame? Can it be eaten? Can it become stronger? Yi Xian was speechless. The spirit realm princess suddenly gazed at Ling Tian and sneered, Do you think you've won? Ling Tian suddenly said, Kill her. As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the radiant dimension were about to attack. However, a few extremely terrifying auras suddenly appeared here, and then a middle-aged man appeared in front of Yi Xian and the others. Ling Tian, who led the group, suddenly frowned when he saw the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man was the city lord of the ancient city, the ancient Ming. The ancient Ming grinned, Elder Ling Tian, what are you doing? It's not good for spirits to kill each other. Ling Tian spoke indifferently, What? Patriarch Ancient Ming intends to interfere in the matters of my radiant dimension. The ancient Ming grinned, My ancient race isn't interested in the matters of your radiant dimension. However, the Spirit Realm Princess is a friend of my ancient race, so my ancient race won't allow anyone to harm the Spirit Realm Princess. The expressions of the experts of the radiant dimension became unsightly when they heard this. Ling Tian suddenly gazed at the Spirit Realm Princess. You're actually colluding with the ancient race? The Spirit Realm Princess grinned. I was even able to kill Ling Exen, so what else can't I do? Ling Tian clenched her right fist tightly while her expression was quite unsightly. The ancient race has interfered. If they attack, then it's very likely that they'll go to war with the ancient race. A war between two dimensions is no joke. Ling Tian's expression gradually turned gloomy. She hadn't expected that the ancient race would suddenly help the Spirit Realm Princess, and it put her in a difficult position. The ancient Ming grinned and seemed to be very relaxed. Suddenly Yi Xian said, Elder Ling Tian, what are you standing there for? Fight them. Ling Tian gazed at Yi Xian. Fight. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Since the ancient race has chosen to help the spirit realm, then it means that they're going to become enemies with the radiant dimension. Since they want to become enemies with us, then why not fight them? Isn't it just a bloody battle? Who's afraid of who? The Spirit Realm Princess gazed at Yi Xian and spoke fiercely. A bloody battle? Do you know how many people will die if a war breaks out between our two dimensions? Do you? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't. The Spirit Realm Princess spoke angrily. Since you don't know, then what are you blabbering on about? Is it fun? Yi Xian spoke indifferently. If the ancient race isn't afraid, then why should the radiant dimension be afraid? As he spoke, he gazed at Ling Tian. Elder Ling Tian, if you trust me, then listen to me and start a war. We'll start a war with anyone who protects this woman. The more fearful you are, the happier they'll be. Because they know that all of you won't dare to start a war, so they'll be even more fearless. Ling Tian narrowed her eyes and slowly clenched her right hand. The ancient Ming stared at Yi Xian with murderous intent in his eyes. Yi Xian looked at the ancient Ming and smiled. What are you looking at me for? Do you think I'm afraid of you? As he spoke, he looked at Ling Tian. Are you going to fight? If you fight, I'll do my best to help the radiant dimension. Damn it, I'll be in a bad mood if this woman doesn't die. Moreover, she even dared to steal my pagoda. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian frowned. Are you going to fight or not? Ling Tian was still a bit hesitant. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly transmitted his voice. The spirit ancestor's guardian is my father, understand? Ling Tian was stunned, but the next moment she waved her hand. Kill. Yi Xian was speechless. P.S. Working hard to save up for the next outbreak. Oh right. You guys haven't forgotten about my outbreak a few days ago, right? Chapter 2072. Kill. As soon as Ling Tian's voice rang out, she had already charged out. Behind her, the spiritual realm's powerhouses charged out one after another. Even though Ling Tian wasn't the patriarch of the radiant world, she was the strongest in the radiant world. Actually, Ling Tian didn't want to go to war with the ancient race in the beginning, because countless living beings would die if war broke out. Moreover, internal strife had just occurred in the radiant world, and the radiant world had no chance of winning with its current strength. However, after she found out that the spirit patriarch's protector was Yi Xian's father, she didn't have any more worries. The ancient Ming's face instantly fell when he saw Ling Tian's group attack. This had exceeded his expectations. Because as far as he was concerned, the radiant world would absolutely not dare to go to war with the ancient race after such an unexpected event had occurred in the radiant world. That was why he dared to interfere in the internal affairs of the radiant world. But he hadn't expected that the radiant world would choose to go to war with them. At this moment he was quite taken by surprise. Of course he had no choice but to act now. Let's fight first. It didn't take long for the battle to erupt. As for Yi Xian, he'd snuck into hiding. While both sides were locked in battle, a sword suddenly tore through the battlefield. In an instant, the head of a reborn expert from the ancient race flew into the air, and his soul was instantly absorbed by the sword. An instant kill. Yi Xian was extremely excited as he watched from the shadows. Surprise attacks are so satisfying. He noticed that he was actually more suitable for surprise attacks. He could take advantage of the enemy's guard and kill them. The ancient Ming's expression instantly changed drastically when he saw a reborn expert perish. He glanced at the surroundings but didn't see the attacker. Meanwhile, Princess Ling spoke solemnly from afar. "It's that swordsman." "The swordsman." The ancient Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. He was about to speak, but a sword suddenly appeared here. One of the reborn experts didn't even have the chance to react before the sword stabbed through the center of his forehead. Another instant kill. At this moment, the experts from the ancient race were slightly panicked. The experts of the spirit race were not weak to begin with. They could not afford to be distracted when fighting against the experts of the spirit race. Now that such a strange assassin had appeared, who could withstand it? At this moment, the spirit race experts were extremely excited. Because with Zhou Xian in the dark, they had an absolute advantage. Ling Tian, who was the leader of the group, suddenly shouted, "Kill! Kill!" As soon as he finished speaking, the Ling clan and the other experts charged towards the Gu clan and the other experts. The Gu clan's patriarch, Gu Ming, suddenly said, "Retreat to the ancient dimension." Retreat. Fighting here was extremely disadvantageous to them. The ancient race experts retreated explosively when they heard Gu Ming. At this moment, Zhou Xian attacked again. A sword suddenly appeared, and by the time everyone noticed it, the sword had already arrived in front of a free state expert. This embodiment transformation realm expert was obviously mentally prepared. The moment the green profound sword appeared, he fiercely punched out. He chose to fight head-on. Of course, he had no choice but to face it head-on because Zhou Xian's sword was truly too fast. Bang! Everyone watched as the green profound sword tore apart the embodiment transformation realm expert's fist. However, it only took an instant for the embodiment transformation realm expert to retreat over 30 kilometers away. The green profound sword pierced through empty air. Zhou Xian frowned slightly in the shadows. He noticed that it would be difficult for him to instantly kill an embodiment transformation realm expert if the spirit race expert was on guard. What a pity! Zhou Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. Meanwhile, Gu Ming and the others were retreating swiftly towards the ancient dimension. Moreover, if they wholeheartedly retreated and didn't continue fighting, then Ling Tian and the other spirits wouldn't be able to do anything to them at all. It didn't take long for the experts of the ancient race to retreat into the ancient dimension. Outside the ancient dimension, Ling Tian's expression was rather unsightly. Actually, she wasn't worried about the ancient dimension but Princess Ling. Because Princess Ling had obtained Zhou Xian Xiaota. If Princess Ling was allowed to cultivate for a period of time, she didn't dare to think about it. Zhou Xian frowned slightly as well. He knew how terrifying Xiaota was. If that woman was allowed to cultivate inside for a month, then when she came out she would probably be invincible in the breakthrough realm. Zhou Xian looked at Ling Tian and the latter said in a low voice, "What do we do now?" Zhou Xian thought about it and said, "Does the ancient dimension have any allies?" Ling Tian nodded. "The Meru realm has a good relationship with them." Zhou Xian asked again, "What about you guys?" Ling Tian shook her head. "Besides the ancient dimension, our relationship with the other realms is alright. However, they won't help us deal with the ancient dimension." Zhou Xian looked at the distant ancient dimension. "Let all the experts of the spiritual realm come." Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian. "Are you sure?" Zhou Xian nodded. "We want the ancient dimension to understand one thing, and that is that we must kill this Princess Ling. For this, we will pay any price and let them see our determination. In this way, there will definitely be disagreements within the ancient dimension. Because if they choose to fight us to the death, then the result will be that both sides will perish together. Once that happens, even if the ancient dimension can win in the end, they will be swallowed up by other forces." Ling Tian asked, "What if they really choose to fight?" Zhou Xian smiled and said, "Then fight. Because the spiritual realm has no other choice. Isn't that right?" Ling Tian fell silent. Just as Zhou Xian had said, the spiritual realm really had no other choice. If they didn't fight and gave the Princess Ling time to develop, then the spiritual realm would be at an absolute disadvantage later on. Thinking up to this point, Ling Tian suddenly said, "Send my order. All the experts of the spiritual realm are to rush over here immediately. Also, activate the great array within the spiritual realm and aim it at the ancient dimension." Zhou Xian looked at Ling Tian. "The great array is aimed at the ancient dimension?" Ling Tian. Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, "Is your great array that ferocious?" Can it fight across dimensions? Ling Tian glanced at Zhou Xian. Is it very difficult? Zhou Xian was speechless. In next to no time, countless experts of the spiritual realm had left the spiritual realm and headed straight for the ancient dimension. Moreover, the various formations within the spiritual realm had been activated. In an instant, a few dozen spatial black holes had appeared in the sky above the ancient dimension, and the various formations of the spiritual realm resided within these spatial black holes. Spatial teleportation. Besides that, the experts of the spiritual realm had arrived outside the ancient dimension as well, and they seemed to intend to take the spiritual realm down with them. Needless to say, the entire 6 dimensions were shocked, because it had been many, many years since a war had occurred between the 2 dimensions. No one could afford to fight it. Once the 2 dimensions went to war, then the effects would be too great. Moreover, no matter who won, the other dimensions would definitely benefit from it in the end. On the other hand, the other 4 dimensions had never imagined that the spiritual realm would actually go all out and directly launch an all-out war. Outside the ancient dimension, Ling Tian pulled Zhou Xian to the side and looked at Zhou Xian. If a war really breaks out, many spirits will perish. Zhou Xian said in a low voice, "You have no other choice. Am I right?" Ling Tian said in a low voice, "Do you really know the spirit ancestor?" Zhou Xian nodded. Ling Tian glanced at Zhou Xian. "Is our relationship good?" Zhou Xian smiled and said, "Yes." Ling Tian nodded slightly. If the spirit ancestor was here, she wouldn't have let so many spirits die in the spiritual realm, right? Zhou Xian fell silent. Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian and didn't say anything either. After a moment, Zhou Xian smiled slightly. "I understand what you mean. Don't worry, the spiritual realm is protected by Little White, which is the same as being protected by my Yang family. If you believe me, then listen to me, okay?" Ling Tian was silent for a moment and said, "I believe you." Zhou Xian nodded slightly. "Then listen to me and do whatever I say." Ling Tian nodded. Some glanced behind Ling Tian. At that moment, the spirit race's elites had already rushed over. It had to be said that there were many elites in the spiritual realm. There were a total of 5 world breakers, nearly 18 freedom transformation realm and countless Daoming realm elites. Zhou Xian turned to look at the ancient dimension and said calmly, "In 2 hours, if the ancient dimension doesn't hand over the spirit princess, my spiritual realm will bathe the ancient dimension in blood." Bathe the ancient dimension in blood. With the support of Xianxia, Zhou Xian's voice spread throughout the ancient dimension. Ling Tian glanced at Zhou Xian and didn't say anything. The ancient dimension. At this moment, all the experts of the ancient dimension were gathered here. All the experts within the hall had unsightly expressions on their faces. They hadn't expected that the radiant dimension would actually send their entire race over to fight the ancient dimension to the death. Most importantly, the ancient dimension had actually lost 2 freedom transformation realm experts. After all, 2 freedom transformation realm experts weren't easy to foster. All the elders here gazed at the ancient Ming who led the group. The ancient Ming's expression was calm and he didn't speak. Actually, he hadn't expected that the matter would develop to such an extent. Has the spirit race gone mad? They've actually sent their entire race over to fight the ancient dimension to the death. Meanwhile, an elder of the ancient dimension spoke abruptly, "I think that this battle isn't necessary at all. Firstly, Princess Ling and the internal affairs of the radiant dimension aren't related to our ancient dimension at all, so we have no right to attack. Secondly, helping Princess Ling fight the radiant dimension to the death isn't beneficial to our ancient dimension at all." All the other experts of the spirit race nodded in agreement when they heard this. The ancient dimension wasn't afraid of the radiant dimension, but they couldn't just casually declare war against the radiant dimension. Fighting the radiant dimension to the death for Princess Ling was simply an idiotic act. More and more experts of the ancient dimension expressed their opinions, and they didn't approve of the ancient dimension going to war against the radiant dimension for Princess Ling. However, the ancient Ming maintained his silence. Meanwhile, an elder of the ancient dimension gazed at the ancient Ming. "Patriarch, what do you think?" As soon as these words were spoken, everyone here gazed at the ancient Ming. After all, the ancient Ming was the patriarch. The ancient Ming grinned, "Let us invite Princess Ling in." Princess Ling. As soon as the ancient Ming finished speaking, a woman walked into the hall. It was Princess Ling. All the experts of the ancient dimension gazed at her with hostile expressions. They'd never had a good impression of the radiant dimension, and now the ancient dimension had caused trouble because of this woman. The ancient Ming gazed at Princess Ling and smiled. Princess Ling, the radiant dimension has mobilized all its forces to attack us. Tell me, should we help you or not? Obviously, he wanted to see if Princess Ling would give the ancient dimension any benefits. If there were benefits, then everything was negotiable. Of course, the benefits had to be sufficiently good. Princess Ling fell silent for a short while before she grinned. I have a gift for all of you. As she spoke, she opened her palm and a Xiaota appeared there. Chapter 2073. Xiaota. Princess Ling was very unwilling because Xiaota was truly too heaven-defying. However, she didn't have a choice. She knew very well that the ancient race wouldn't protect her if she didn't give them sufficient benefits. Of course, the real reason she'd brought out Xiaota was to draw the ancient race into a war with the radiant dimension. Moreover, once Xiaota showed himself, then the situation would become complicated. Would the other worlds give up on Xiaota if they knew how heaven-defying he was? She didn't know, but she knew that they would definitely be tempted. At that time, Yi Xian's enemies wouldn't just be the ancient race. Simply speaking, the 6 dimensions would definitely fall into chaos once Xiaota showed himself. Moreover, the ancient race would absolutely not give up on such a precious treasure. All the experts of the ancient race frowned when they saw Xiaota. An old man spoke solemnly. What kind of trash is that? Xiaota suddenly spoke angrily. You're the trash. Are you blind? I'm the #1 pagoda in the universe. The old man's face fell. If you speak rudely again, then this old man will shatter your soul. Xiaota suddenly became agitated. Shatter my soul? Do you know who I belong to? Oh no, do you know whose pagoda I belong to? I was created by Big Sister Tianming. Try and touch me. Come and try. The old man's face turned gloomy and he slowly clenched his right fist. Meanwhile, the ancient Ming suddenly gazed at Princess Ling. What's the use of this pagoda? Princess Ling smiled. Why don't all of you enter the pagoda and give it a try? The ancient Ming glanced at Princess Ling, and then he led everyone into Xiaota. A short while later, all of them appeared here once more. At this moment, all the experts of the ancient race had extremely solemn expressions on their faces, and it gradually transformed into excitement and fervor. The ancient Ming suddenly said, "Activate all the grand formations." This time no one within the hall objected. The corners of Princess Ling's mouth curled up slightly while a wisp of ferocity flashed through her eyes. Damned swordsman. Let's see if you can survive this. With the activation of the ancient race's great array, everyone understood. The ancient race was going to start a war with the spiritual world. However, the other worlds were confused. Why did the ancient race start a war with the spiritual realm? For a Princess Ling? This wasn't normal. In the sky above the ancient realm, Ling Tian's face immediately darkened when he saw the ancient clan's great formation being activated. Clearly, the threat of the spiritual realm had no effect. The ancient race was going to fight to the death with the spiritual world. Ling Tian turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian's expression was calm as he looked down. No one knew what he was thinking. At this time, Gu Ming appeared in front of Yi Xian and Ling Tian. He looked at Yi Xian and Ling Tian and smiled. You two, what are you doing? Do you think the spirit race is so easily frightened? Ling Tian was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly smiled. It looks like Princess Ling has given Xiaota to Patriarch Gu Ming. Ling Tian narrowed his eyes and didn't speak. Yi Xian continued. Patriarch Gu Ming, how about we make a deal? Gu Ming frowned. A deal? Yi Xian nodded. You can have Xiaota, but the spiritual realm only wants Princess Ling. The ancient Ming was stunned. Bullshit. Meanwhile, Princess Ling suddenly appeared here and she stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Do you think the ancient race would believe your nonsense? Yi Xian smiled. What do you think? Princess Ling turned to look at Gu Ming. Gu Ming smiled. Princess Ling said it. Do you think I will believe you? Yi Xian said with a smile. I am a sword cultivator. I mean what I say. As long as you give us Princess Ling, we will leave immediately. We will never start a war with the ancient race. Not now, not in the future. I mean it. Gu Ming stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. Princess Ling suddenly sneered. Do you think the ancient race will believe you just because you say this? Yi Xian suddenly turned to Ling Tian. Elder Ling Tian, I swear by the spirit ancestor that as long as the ancient race hands over Princess Ling, not only will we not take Xiaota, we will also not start a war with the ancient race. We will immediately retreat. Moreover, we will not interfere with the affairs of the 6 realms for 10 years. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. Are you serious? Yi Xian nodded. Ling Tian was silent for a moment, then looked at Gu Ming. My spiritual realm swears by the spirit ancestor that if the ancient race is willing to hand over. Yi Xian suddenly said, wait. Hearing this, everyone looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. In exchange, not only will the ancient race hand over Princess Ling, but you will also have to cripple her and hand her over to us. Princess Ling stared at Yi Xian without saying a word. Gu Ming suddenly smiled. What if I don't agree? Yi Xian blinked. That's easy. Let's just fight. Gu Ming squinted his eyes. Are you threatening me? Yi Xian laughed. Threatening you? Ancient Ming patriarch, if you don't want to hand over this woman, then we will fight. Finishing his words, he lightly raised his thumb. Swish. The azure profound sword suddenly flew out. In the distance, Gu Ming squinted his eyes, reached out with his right hand and lightly twisted. Boom. In an instant, a terrifying force blocked Yi Xian's azure profound sword. At this time Yi Xian suddenly said, activate the Great Formation. Ling Tian immediately ordered, activate the Great Formation. With that, all the great formations in the sky above the ancient race activated and a terrifying aura locked onto the ancient race. A great battle was about to begin. They really are going to fight. The ancient Ming stared at Yi Xian. Damn, he was also speechless. This guy was simply a hothead. Did this idiot know what it meant to start a war between the 2 realms? Or did this idiot think that a war between the 2 realms was child's play? Moreover, didn't he not reject it? Does this idiot even know what negotiation is? At this time, an ancient race elder suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and hurriedly said, wait. Wait. Yi Xian looked at the elder. What are you waiting for? Don't you want to live and die with Princess Ling? The ancient race elder glanced at Yi Xian. When did the ancient race say that we will live and die with Princess Ling? Yi Xian frowned and looked at the Gu Ming. Did I misunderstand? Gu Ming. The ancient race elder said in a deep voice. Your Excellency, is what you just said true? As long as we hand over Princess Ling, you will withdraw and stay in the spiritual realm for 10 years. Yi Xian nodded. It's true. Then he looked at Princess Ling. I helped her at first, but she treated me like an idiot. Not only did she use me, she even ridiculed me. How can I tolerate this? I can't. I want to kill her. Whoever helps her will be my enemy and the spiritual realm. Princess Ling stared at Yi Xian, her gaze sharper than a sword. The ancient race elder glanced at Yi Xian. We are willing to hand her over. Yi Xian shook his head. You have to cripple her and hand her over to me. The ancient race elder frowned slightly. Yi Xian looked at the ancient race elder and spoke fiercely. Do you want to live and die with her? Do you? If you do, then we'll take her down with us. The ancient race elder looked at Yi Xian with astonishment. What the fuck? What's wrong with this guy? The Gu clan's patriarch, Gu Ming, slightly frowned. Where did this idiot come from? The ancient race elder hesitated for a moment and said, we'll hand her over and you can deal with it yourselves. Yi Xian stared at the ancient race elder without saying a word, but his thumb was already pressed against the green profound sword. The corners of the ancient race elder's mouth twitched when he saw this, and he hurriedly said, Young master, our ancient race has already made a huge concession. You, Yi Xian suddenly spoke indifferently, you call this a concession? Elder, protecting her is equivalent to slapping our spiritual realm in the face. Now you should at least show some sincerity and give our spiritual realm a way out of this embarrassing situation. Otherwise, what would others think of us if we return just like that? The ancient race elder spoke in a low voice. What would others think of us if we help you deal with Princess Ling? Obviously, it was a matter of face. Yi Xian grinned. Elder Gu, shall we talk somewhere else? Elder Gu was stunned. Yi Xian spoke via voice transmission. Elder Gu, you're confused. Do you lack face right now? No. It's time. Elder Gu's pupils constricted when he heard this. Xiaota's matter couldn't be allowed to go unpunished, and all they could do was make use of Xiaota to become stronger in this limited time. Otherwise, how could they protect this divine treasure? Elder Gu turned to look at Gu Ming when he thought up to this point. and they conversed via voice transmission. A short while later, Gu Ming gazed at Princess Ling. "Excuse me." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the ancient race attacked. Not long after, Princess Ling's body was smashed to pieces, leaving only her soul. Moreover, her soul was imprisoned by a powerful force. The ancient race elder brought her to Yi Xian. "Young Master Yi, I'll leave Princess Ling to you. Take care." Yi Xian smiled. "All right." Then he looked at Princess Ling. Princess Ling suddenly burst into laughter. "Ridiculous. Ridiculous." Yi Xian smiled. "What's so funny?" Princess Ling looked at the ancient race experts and mocked. "You're all a bunch of retards to actually believe this shameless swordsman's words. Just you wait, you'll all cry." Gu Ming and the rest looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. "Xiao Ta is already in the hands of the ancient race. I know my own limits. The spiritual realm won't help me get Xiao Ta back. Even if we go to war, we're not sure we can win. Since that's the case, why shouldn't I be more optimistic? Moreover, the pagoda is in my hands. To a person like me who has no backing, it's simply an enormous calamity. Letting him go now might not be a bad thing." The ancient race elder glanced at Yi Xian. "Young Master Ye's attitude is really good. This old man admires you." Yi Xian smiled. "We'll be taking our leave." Princess Ling looked at Yi Xian and spat venomously. "Shameless swordsman, don't think I don't know you." Yi Xian raised his hand and slapped her. Flap. Princess Ling's soul violently trembled and directly became illusory. Yi Xian glanced at Princess Ling. "You still want to sow discord between us and the ancient race? Truly foolish." Then he looked at the ancient race elder and smiled. "Elder, that Xiao Ta's temper isn't too good. You mustn't spoil him. If you can fix him, then fix him. After that, he'll be well behaved." Xiao Ta. P.S. Sorry for the late update. Don't look for excuses, add one more update. Chapter 2074. Yi Xian left with Princess Ling and the experts from the Radiant World once he finished giving his orders. After Yi Xian's group left, the ancient Ming spoke in a low voice. "That person isn't normal." The elder nodded. "He seems to be a rash person, but he's actually very meticulous." As he spoke, he gazed at the ancient Ming. "Our top priority is to improve our strength as soon as possible." The ancient Ming's expression became solemn when he heard this. The matter regarding Xiao Ta absolutely couldn't be kept a secret. Once the other 5 worlds find out about Xiao Ta, then they will absolutely not give up on Xiao Ta. At that time, the ancient race will be in an extremely dangerous situation because it's very likely that the other 5 worlds will join forces against the ancient race. However, he doesn't intend to give up on Xiao Ta either. Because Xiao Ta can change the fate of the ancient race. "I'll give it my all." The ancient Ming immediately said, "Summon all the clansmen and elders who are in seclusion. Tell them to come out immediately." The elder nodded, turned around and left. The ancient Ming glanced at the direction Yi Xian and the others had left towards, and he frowned slightly. Yi Xian had given up too directly. This made him quite worried. A short while later, the ancient Ming shook his head and left. He didn't have the time to care about Yi Xian any longer. Obtaining Xiao Ta was a great fortune for the ancient race, but it could also become a disaster. It didn't take long for the entire ancient race to be on full alert. Moreover, all the grand formations of the ancient race had been activated, and the atmosphere in the ancient race had become extremely tense. On the other hand, Yi Xian and the others had returned to the Radiant World. The Radiant World. Ling Tian brought Princess Ling to a white palace. All the experts of the Radiant World were gathered there, and there was a crystal coffin at the center of the hall. There was only a thumb-sized ball of energy within the coffin. Ling Tian gazed at Princess Ling. "Kneel." All the other spirits gazed at Princess Ling furiously. Princess Ling's face was emotionless. "If you want to kill me, then kill me." Yi Xian suddenly raised his thumb, and the green profound sword shot into the center of Princess Ling's forehead. Bang! Princess Ling's soul trembled violently, and then it swiftly dispersed. All the spirits were stunned. Yi Xian blinked. "Didn't she say that she could kill me? Then kill me. Don't spoil her." Princess Ling stared at Yi Xian without saying anything. Yi Xian shrugged, and then he put away the green profound sword. Yi Xian shrugged and put away the Xianxia sword. Ling Tian looked at Princess Ling. "She treats you like her own. Why are you treating her like this?" Ling. If she really treated me like her own child, she wouldn't have wanted to pass the position of Ling clan patriarch to you. Ling Tian frowned. You killed her because of this. Ling Tian Ling, Saint Ling Ling King Ling. Ling Tian shook his head slightly. You should know that I've never been interested in the position of Ling clan's patriarch. And the reason why she revealed to you that she would pass the position to me was her final test for you. Princess Ling narrowed her eyes. What test? Ling Tian shook his head again. It depends on your attitude and your heart. In order to become the leader of the spirit race, one must have a benevolent heart and a broad mind. Only then would one be able to lead the entire spirit race well. And she definitely didn't expect that your heart would actually be so vicious. Ling Tian slowly closed his eyes. Winner takes all. Saying all this now is meaningless. Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian smiled and said, kill him. This woman is a scourge if we keep her alive. Princess Ling suddenly looked at Zhou Xian and said angrily, shameless swordsman, it's all your fault. If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't have happened. Zhou Xian shook his head. Princess Ling, without me you wouldn't have succeeded. Because you're too retarded. With your IQ you want to seize the throne? Even I feel embarrassed. Princess Ling stared at Zhou Xian. If you didn't take away my sword energy, would I have lost? Zhou Xian was speechless. Big sister, that sword energy belongs to my father. Are you out of your mind by using my father's sword energy to kill me? Also, I told you before that the spirit ancestor belongs to my family, but you didn't believe me. I'm also speechless. Sometimes it's rare to tell the truth, but no one believes me. This world is really strange. Princess Ling slowly closed her eyes. Kill me. Zhou Xian looked at Ling Tian, but Ling Tian remained silent. Zhou Xian felt a headache coming on. Elder Ling Tian, why are you still hesitating? Shouldn't you just kill this kind of person? Let me tell you, if you hadn't met me, you would have been instantly killed by my father's sword energy. Once you die, have you thought about the fate of the entire spirit race? Hearing this, Ling Tian frowned slightly. After a while she waved her hand, turned around and left. Zhou Xian directly opened his palm, and the azure profound sword instantly entered between Princess Ling's eyebrows. Boom! The spirit princess was completely sucked dry. Zhou Xian put away the azure profound sword and walked out. Outside, Ling Tian looked at the sky and said softly, I never thought that things would turn out like this. Zhou Xian smiled. I also never thought that the spirit race would kill each other. Ling Tian shook her head. This kind of thing is very rare. As she spoke, she looked at Zhou Xian. You made me swear on the spirit ancestor that as long as the ancient race hands her over, the spirit race will seal off the world for 10 years. Are you serious? Zhou Xian nodded. Ling Tian was slightly puzzled. What do you intend to do next? Zhou Xian smiled. What do you think I'll do? Ling Tian spoke in a low voice. I don't know. Zhou Xian grinned. Elder Ling Tian, the 6 dimensions are about to fall into chaos. The spirit race shouldn't interfere at a time like this. Ling Tian gazed at Zhou Xian. You don't seem to be worried about Xiao Ta at all. Zhou Xian smiled. They'll treat it like a treasure now, so why should I be worried? Ling Tian's beautiful brows knit together slightly. Aren't you afraid that you won't be able to capture Xiao Ta? Zhou Xian spoke softly. Someone will be even more anxious than me. Ling Tian was slightly stunned, and then she understood in the next moment. At this moment, Zhou Xian turned to look at the hall and said, What's that white ball of light? Ling Tian said in a low voice, That's the spirit core of the clan leader. It's just like a human body. Zhou Xian asked, His consciousness is gone? Ling Tian nodded. Zhou Xian sighed softly. In this case, even if Xiao Bai is here, she can't resurrect him. After a moment, Zhou Xian said, Then Elder Ling Tian, let's bid farewell here. Remember, no matter what happens outside, the spirit race shouldn't come out. After saying that, he walked out of the hall. At this moment, Ling Tian suddenly said, Wait. Zhou Xian looked at Ling Tian, and Ling Tian hesitated for a moment, then opened her palm and a storage ring appeared in front of Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian glanced at it, and there were 20 star veins in the storage ring. 20 star veins. Zhou Xian looked at Ling Tian. Elder Ling Tian, what are you doing? Ling Tian said in a low voice, I don't have any other intentions. It's just a small token of my appreciation. I hope you can accept it. Zhou Xian thought for a moment and then he put the storage ring away. Thank you. Ling Tian gazed at Zhou Xian. If you encounter any danger outside, you can return to the spirit race. We have the strength to fight here. Yixian's heart felt slightly warm and he smiled. Thank you. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and vanished into the horizon. Ling Tian looked up into the sky with a trace of worry in her eyes. She knew that Yixian didn't want the spirit race to get mixed up in this mess, and Yixian was protecting the spirit race. After a short while, Ling Tian shook her head lightly, turned around and left. As soon as Yixian left the spirit race, Bai Yi from the God Yong mercenary group and Nanning from the Riverside mercenary group, Yixian was slightly stunned, and then he smiled and said, I didn't expect the two of you to come looking for me. Bai Yi said in a low voice, Brother Yi, can we go somewhere else to talk? Yixian smiled and said, Of course. The three of them vanished on the spot. Somewhere in the clouds, Bai Yi glanced at Yixian and then she said in a low voice, Brother Yi, Xiao Ta from the ancient realm. Yixian smiled and said, Which power do you represent? Bai Yi fell silent. Yixian smiled again and said, You're not sincere. Bai Yi smiled bitterly, Brother Yi, this is actually not a secret. My God Yong mercenary group is backed by the Mountain Realm, and Miss Nanning's Riverside mercenary group is backed by the Immortal Realm. I've come to look for Brother Yi this time because I want to figure out Xiao Ta. Yixian said abruptly, that Xiao Ta's ability is indeed true. 10 years in there is equivalent to a day in the outside world. Hearing this, the two's expressions turned grave. Bai Yi said in a low voice, Brother Yi, may I ask how you obtained such a divine object? Yixian smiled and said, I obtained it by chance. Of course, this isn't important anymore. What's important is that Xiao Ta has fallen into the hands of the ancient race, and it won't be long before the ancient race becomes the leader of the 6 dimensions. No, at that time, there will probably only be the ancient realm and not the other 5 dimensions. Bai Yi and Nanning's expressions became slightly unsightly when they heard this. Yixian smiled lightly, this place isn't very safe anymore. I've decided to leave. Bai Yi frowned slightly, leave? Yixian nodded. I'm afraid that the ancient race will look for trouble with me. Bai Yi hesitated for a moment and said, Brother Yi, are you going to give up just like that? Yixian was slightly helpless. I have no choice but to give up. The ancient race has the advantage in numbers while I'm all alone. How can I go against them? Nanning suddenly said, Don't you have the spirit dimension behind you? Yixian shook his head. I was only working with the spirit dimension in the past. They won't help me deal with the ancient race. Nanning's brows knit together slightly. After a short moment she said in a low voice, Young Master Yi, what if we're willing to help you? Yixian hurriedly shook his head. No. Don't help me. The ancient race is so formidable and I don't dare to go against them. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Nanning suddenly stopped Yixian and stared at Yixian. Young Master Yi, are you going to give up just like that? Yixian smiled bitterly. Miss Nanning, it's not that I want to give up, but I know my own limits. Tell me, how can a person like me who has no backing fight against the ancient race? I'm different from the two of you. Both of you have backing, but I don't. P.S. I'm sorry, please forgive me. Chapter 2075. When they heard Yixian's words, their expressions became strange. In their opinion, there was definitely someone behind Yixian. Otherwise, it was impossible for an independent cultivator to cultivate to such a level. No matter how monstrous he was, he still needed resources. They would never believe that Yixian did not have a powerful background. Bai Yi thought about it and said, Brother Yi, do you think they will let it go just because we have Xiao Ta? No. They will never let it go. They don't have time to care about you now, but once they do, they will definitely eliminate you. Nanning nodded. Young Master Yi, if you don't do anything to them, they will. Yixian glanced at them and sneered in his heart. The powers behind these two wanted to use him as a spear to fight against the ancient race. Yixian retracted his thoughts and smiled. Let me think about it. Think about it. With that, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon on his sword. He was so fast that by the time they reacted, Yixian had vanished without a trace. This time he didn't refuse directly. He had to leave some hope for these forces. Otherwise they would not let it go. Seeing Yixian leave, Bai Yi frowned slightly. Nanning suddenly said, Young Master Yi is a smart man. It's not realistic for us to use him to fight against the ancient race. Bai Yi nodded. Let them handle it themselves. The two left. Actually, they didn't want to get involved in this matter. This was a matter between worlds. Once they got involved, they would be doomed if they weren't careful. Ancient world. At this moment, the ancient race had entered the highest state of alert. Not only that, but all the ancient race experts had returned to the ancient race. Even the old monsters of the ancient race who were in closed-door cultivation had come out. Getting Xiao Ta was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the ancient race. As long as the ancient race survived, there would be only one ancient world in the future. Of course, they knew that the other 5 worlds would not let it go. If they survived, the ancient world would be invincible. If they could not endure it, there might be no more ancient worlds in the world. But all the ancient race experts chose to take a gamble. After Zhou Xian and Bai Yi parted ways, he arrived at the peak of a mountain. He looked down at the vast mountain range with a calm expression. After a moment, Zhou Xian slowly closed his eyes. Calm your mind. Needless to say, he really liked this state. After entering this state, he felt like a true swordsman, a swordsman with only the sword in his heart. Swordsman. The heart is the core. If the heart could not be calm, the sword could not be calm. In fact, he was a little confused at this moment. Ever since he had chosen not to break the circle but to enter the circle, he had parted ways with the mainstream body cultivators. Now, the embodiment of bliss and the break world had nothing to do with him. Confusion. After entering the circle, he would have to explore his future on his own. It was especially easy to fall into confusion. It was not difficult to walk the path of others, but it was extremely difficult to carve out one's own path. And now he had reached a bottleneck. Calm his mind. This was what he had comprehended after entering the circle. What about after calming his mind? Zhou Xian slowly opened his eyes and looked into the distance. After a long time, he opened his left hand, and the green profound sword appeared in his hand. He smiled slightly. Little soul, what do you think I should do from now on? Little soul was silent for a long time, then said, walk while standing. Zhou Xian's face immediately darkened. It was all this Xiao Ta's fault, leading little soul into being fancy. Little soul suddenly said, young master, are you interested in developing your soul? Zhou Xian was a little curious. Soul. Little soul said, yes. As long as you are a living creature, you will have a soul. Young master has the soul fixation sword that Sister Tianming taught you. If you develop in this direction, you should have a good future. Soul fixation sword. Zhou Xian frowned slightly. How do I develop? Little soul said, young master, I'm just a sword. How would I know? Zhou Xian's expression froze. Damn this damn Xiao Ta. A moment later, Zhou Xian looked at the green profound sword in his hand. Soul fixation sword. How could he make soul fixation sword even more awesome? Zhou Xian was silent for a long time, then said, I don't want to think about it. I'll find Qing and ask her some other day. Little soul hesitated, then said, young master, isn't your goal to surpass Sister Tianming and the others? Zhou Xian nodded. Yes. Little soul said, then you should walk your own path. Zhou Xian said seriously, you don't understand. I'll first follow the path of Qing and Dad. When I reach the end of their path, I'll create a brand new sword Dao to surpass them. Do you understand? Little soul was silent for a moment, then said, what you mean is, in the secular world, a rich second generation does not choose to start a business, but chooses to inherit the family business first, and then start a business on the basis of his father's wealth and finally surpass his father, right? Zhou Xian hesitated for a moment. Your analogy. Little soul suddenly smiled and said, young master, that seems to work. But young master, I still think you should walk your own path. Zhou Xian said with a smile, why? Little soul thought for a moment, then said, because I think if you walk the path of Sister Tianming and your father, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to surpass them on this path. Zhou Xian was silent. Little soul giggled. Do you think what I said makes sense? Zhou Xian said with a smile, makes sense. Hey, I'll work hard. If I really can't do it, then let my son do it. My son is invincible, and it's no different from me being invincible. Little soul reminded him, young master, I've heard of those who rely on their fathers, but I haven't heard of those who rely on their sons. Zhou Xian. Without any more nonsense with little soul, Zhou Xian walked down the mountain range below. He walked very slowly because he was thinking, What he said just now was naturally a joke. His goal in this life was to surpass his father and Qing. As for his son, even if he had a son in the future, he would not let his son work so hard. Of course, he would never let his son live so easily. Leave him alone. He had already thought it through. The fine tradition of the Yang family could not be broken in his hands. Before he knew it, Zhou Xian had walked to the bottom of the mountain and he came to a small stream. How to surpass Qing and his father? As Little Soul said, he couldn't follow the path of his father and Qing to the end, because if he kept following them, he would certainly not surpass them. He was improving, but hadn't his father and Qing improved? He had to think of a way to overtake them. Zhou Xian slowly closed his eyes. In fact, he did not know what level his current combat power was. Of course, even if he had to fight with someone in the break realm, he would not be afraid. However, he did not know if he could win. Right now, he still had the strongest trump card that he had not used, which was the power of the myriad realms and the power of the myriad realms. The instant of life and death that he had created could only be developed to the extreme after being supported by the power of the myriad realms and the power of the myriad realms. But so far he had not played it like this. Right now he was only using momentum, sword momentum, bloodline power and fighting spirit. He also wanted to see the power of his ultimate sword strike. His biggest problem now was how to go further. The realm of daylight. Zhou Xian suddenly thought of this place. This place was the complete opposite of the time in Xiao Ta's body, which could make time pass quickly. Thinking of this, Zhou Xian suddenly had an idea in his mind. Why didn't he develop in this aspect of time? One sword strike to cut off lifespan. Thinking of this, Zhou Xian immediately turned around and disappeared on the spot. Zhou Xian once again went to the spirit realm. Inside the palace, he began to ask Ling Tian about the realm of daylight. For Zhou Xian, Ling Tianyi did not hold back and told him everything he knew. After Zhou Xian entered the realm of daylight, although he did not have Xiao Ta, the mysterious power of the realm of daylight had no effect on him. This was because he had the Qingxian sword. It ignored all the power of time and space. Zhou Xian began to try to use the Qingxian sword to control the mysterious power of the realm of darkness. He found that the Qingxian sword could control the power of the realm of darkness. It should be said that the power of the realm of darkness was afraid of the Qingxian sword because the Qingxian sword could easily destroy the power of the realm of darkness. However, Zhou Xian was also very careful because he could not come into contact with the power of the realm of darkness. If he came into contact with it, his life force would quickly disappear. The higher one's realm was, the longer one's lifespan would be. Theoretically speaking, under normal circumstances, as long as there were no accidents, it would be very difficult for an expert at the free transformation realm and the breaking realm to die. Although it couldn't be said to be immortal, experts like them had extremely long lifespans. However, this kind of powerhouse usually went into seclusion for hundreds of years or even longer. Therefore, time was extremely short to them. Most of the time, even 1,000 years would pass in the blink of an eye to them, severing his lifespan with one slash. This was what Zhou Xian was thinking at the moment. The reason why the break world plane was strong was because he could use the space-time within the day-night realm to send someone in, causing their lifespan to decrease rapidly. To put it simply, he was using time to kill his target. And he could use the green profound sword to draw out the power of the day-night realm. To put it simply, he could directly use the space-time power and did not need to bring people into the day-night realm. Although he was not at the breaking realm, he could do everything that a breaking realm expert could do. Not only that, but he could also do things that a breaking realm expert could not do. Because a breaking realm expert had to send someone into the day-night realm to use the space-time power of the day-night realm to consume their lifespan, he could bring out the space-time power of the day-night realm. He was even more simple and direct. In the following time, Zhou Xian began to study the space-time power in the day-night realm. Because he had the green profound sword, he did not encounter too many obstacles. 5 days later, Zhou Xian had successfully drawn the power of the day-night realm from the day-night realm to the current space-time. However, he encountered a new problem, which was how to make this power of the day-night realm exert its greatest power. With one slash of the sword, the opponent would die on the spot. This was his goal. Chapter 2076. The Spiritual Dimension. Zhou Xian stood in a bamboo forest with his eyes closed. He held the sheathed azure sword in his left hand, and he seemed to be in a meditative state. Meditation. At this moment, Zhou Xian had entered a meditative state and everything around him seemed to have quietened down. Everything was clear. Right at this moment Yi Xian suddenly flicked his thumb. The azure sword was unsheathed. In an instant the bamboo forest that Yi Xian stood in grew at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. In less than half a breath's time, the entire bamboo forest had grown by a few hundred times, and it didn't take long for the bamboo forest to wither and transform into dust. In this instant, the bamboo forest had experienced a short period of almost 1,000 years. 1,000 years with a single strike. Yi Xian hurriedly put away the azure sword with an extremely solemn expression. Needless to say, this had exceeded his expectations. He hadn't expected the flow energy to be so terrifying. Apart from himself, with him as the center, the space within a radius of several li rapidly flowed by for nearly 1,000 years. 1,000 years. What did this mean? It was terrifying. Even Yi Xian himself felt terrified. Because a moment of carelessness had really caused him to die on the spot. However, this was far from enough. Because a lifespan of 1,000 years wasn't much to many top-rate experts. Nowadays some experts could easily live for a few million years. So what was 1,000 years? Nothing at all. Of course he had a way to deal with it. He'd only tested it with that strike earlier, and he hadn't used too much of the flow energy. In any case, with the azure sword, not only could he directly connect to the day-night realm, he could even borrow the flow energy from the day-night realm. Meanwhile, Ling Tian suddenly appeared by Yi Xian's side. She glanced at the surroundings before looking at Yi Xian with an extremely solemn expression. "You're able to draw out the flow energy from the day-night realm?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Ling Tian spoke in a low voice. "How did you do it?" Yi Xian waved the azure sword in his hand. Ling Tian frowned. "Your father made this sword for you?" Yi Xian shook his head. "My sister gave it to me." Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. "Sister?" Yi Xian nodded. "How is it? Awesome, right?" Ling Tian shook his head slightly. "It's not just powerful. This was terror. Incomparably terrifying. Previously there were people who wanted to draw out the power of space-time from the White Day realm, but in the end everyone gave up. Do you know why?" Yi Xian was curious. "Why?" Ling Tian said solemnly. "Because it's impossible." Yi Xian frowned. "I think it's very simple. Look, I easily lured it out. No difficulty at all." Ling Tian's face twitched. "Why don't you try using your sword?" Yi Xian was speechless. Ling Tian continued. "Do you know why everyone gave up? Because in order to draw out the power of space-time, there must be a medium. It's equivalent to building a bridge between this world's space-time and the White Day realm's space-time. In order to accomplish this, some people used countless divine objects in hopes of using these divine objects as a medium to draw out the power of space-time from the White Day realm. But in the end, they realized that no divine object was able to endure the power of space-time, so they could only give up." When she spoke up to this point, she glanced at the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand and said, "Your sword is actually so terrifying. It's able to endure the power of space-time." As she spoke, she glanced at Yi Xian. "Your sister isn't weak, right?" Yi Xian blinked. "She's a little stronger than me." Ling Tian rolled her eyes at Yi Xian. "It shouldn't be just a little." Yi Xian chuckled and said, "Elder Ling Tian, does that mean that I'm the first person to draw out the power of space-time from the White Day realm?" Ling Tian nodded. She looked at the azure sword in Yi Xian's hand. "How much power can your sword endure?" Yi Xian glanced at the azure sword and smiled. "Limitless." "Limitless." Ling Tian was visibly moved. "Limitless." Yi Xian nodded. Ling Tian took a deep look at Yi Xian. "You're going to be invincible." Needless to say, she was extremely shocked at this moment. Limitless. What did this mean? It meant that Yi Xian was like carrying a White Day realm with him. Moreover, he could use the power of space-time limitlessly. Who could withstand Yi Xian's attack? Even if they could block Yi Xian's first attack, what about the second and third attacks? It had to be known that every time they blocked Yi Xian's attack, it was like losing a life. Fighting with Yi Xian was really playing with their lives. The more they thought about it, the more terrified they became. Right now, although Yi Xian wasn't in the breaking world realm, he was much scarier than that. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Elder Ling Tian, I'm leaving." Ling Tian was a little bit shocked. "Leaving?" Yi Xian nodded. "If I stay here, I'm afraid I'll bring trouble to the spiritual world." Ling Tian hesitated and said, "Where are you going?" Yi Xian smiled. "You'll know soon enough." After that, he rode his sword and disappeared. When Yi Xian left the spiritual world, an old man in a white robe appeared in front of him. The old man in a white robe smiled. "Young Master Yi, I am the leader of the mountain realm, Sumi Kong. Can we talk?" Yi Xian smiled. "Of course." The white-robed old man roared with laughter, and then he said, "Young Master Yi, I've come here this time because I want to confirm something. Is the tiny pagoda really that miraculous?" Yi Xian blinked. "Why do you ask when you already know the answer?" The old man in a white robe sighed. "I never thought that there would be such a terrifying divine weapon in this world." Yi Xian smiled and didn't say anything. The old man in a white robe looked at Yi Xian and said seriously, "Young friend Yi, the ancient dimension actually tried to seize your Xiao Ta in broad daylight. Such actions are truly inhumane and shameful. My mountain realm and the heavenly dimension have decided to uphold justice and help you seize back Xiao Ta. We'll return peace to the 6 dimensions." Yi Xian blinked and then he gave a thumbs up. "Good. Very good." The old man in a white robe looked at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian to continue. However, Yi Xian didn't. The old man's expression froze. He hesitated for a moment and said, "Young friend, you don't seem to be very enthusiastic." Yi Xian sighed softly. "Patriarch Kong, the ancient race is one of the 6 races of the current era, and it's an extraordinary power. Look at me. What am I? I'm just a little swordsman without any backing or backing. How would I go against the ancient race?" When he spoke up to here, he sighed heavily once more and said, "Senior, all of you don't understand the sorrow of nobodies like us. Nobodies like us without any backing or backing have to rely on ourselves for everything, and it's very difficult for us to live." Sumi Kong glanced at Yi Xian. "Young friend, you don't seem like an independent cultivator without any backing or backing." Yi Xian laughed bitterly. "You don't even know how I got here. Talking about it makes me cry. Tears." Sumi Kong frowned. Why is this fellow so stubborn? Meanwhile, Yi Xian spoke abruptly. "Patriarch Kong, I know what all of you mean. All of you can use my name to deal with the ancient race, but I will absolutely not act against them. Of course, even if I do act, I'm unable to help all of you at all with my strength." The meaning behind his words was that they could do whatever they wanted and he, Yi Xian, wouldn't get involved. Sumi Kong thought about it for a long time before he smiled and said, "Of course, we understand young friend Yi. However, we might have to use young friend Ye's name. After all, Xiao Ta is young friend Ye's." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Senior Sumi Kong, how about this? I'll sell Xiao Ta to you for 5-star veins." Xiao Ta was speechless. Sumi Kong frowned slightly. "Sell him to us?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes. I'll sell him to you." Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. "That Xiao Ta doesn't seem to be in your hands." Yi Xian said seriously, "Senior, if you're willing to pay 5-star veins, then I'll sell Xiao Ta to you. To put it simply, Xiao Ta will be yours in name. This way, when you target the ancient race, it will be more justifiable. When you make your clansmen risk their lives, they will be even more willing because your clansmen will think, fuck, this was originally our Sumi race. The ancient race actually dared to steal something from our Sumi race." Speaking up to here, he smiled and said, "Senior, do you think these 5-star veins are worth it?" Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and then he smiled and said, "Young friend, what you say is very correct. This method is very good." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Then these star veins." Sumi Kong blinked and said, "Young friend, I feel that you should listen to my opinion first. If we tell the world that young friend is someone from our Sumi realm, wouldn't that be even more justifiable? Then if you suddenly die, our Sumi realm will say that you were killed by the ancient race. Isn't that better?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Good. Very good." Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian with a smile on his face, but a powerful aura directly locked onto Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled and said, "If Senior feels that 5-star veins are very expensive, then please kill me. I won't resist really." Sumi Kong slightly frowned. Not resisting. Yi Xian's expression was very calm, and there was even a smile on his face. Sumi Kong was silent. This youth in front of him was fearless. Why was he so fearless? Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and smiled as he said, "Young friend, didn't you say that you don't have any backing?" Yi Xian blinked and said, "It is true that I don't have any backing. I also don't have any backing. From the start of my cultivation until now, it was all my own hard work. It has nothing to do with anyone else, including the fact that I instantly killed the free embodiment transformation expert of the ancient race. That strength was all from my own cultivation. I really didn't rely on my family, nor did I rely on my master. Really, it was all from my own hard work. Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian continued to say, Senior, you really don't have to worry about anything. I'm just a lone person. If you kill me, the Sumi race won't provoke any other mysterious faction. Don't worry, come. Kill me, I definitely won't resist. Sumi Kong. P.S. Asking for votes. Asking for votes. I exploded out a long time ago. Chapter 2077. Sumi Kong's expression was somewhat gloomy. Could Yi Xian have cultivated by himself? He naturally did not believe it. A person without resources would never be able to reach this stage. Moreover, that Xiao Ta was so heaven-defying. He had never appeared in the 6 realms before, so how could he appear in Yi Xian? Not simple. Thinking to hear, Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and smiled slightly. Little friend, what are you saying? Didn't I say it just now? That is if my Xian race has no grievances with little friend, so why would we target little friend? Our common enemy is the ancient race. What do you think? Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior, what do you think of my suggestion just now? If you are willing to give me 5-star veins, I can announce to the outside world that Xiao Ta is from the Xian race. I can even prove it to the ancient race, as long as you give me 5-star veins. 5-star veins. Sumi Kong was silent. Yi Xian suddenly smiled and said, If Senior is not willing, then I will go talk to the heaven realm and have them stand on the moral high ground. At that time, Sumi Kong suddenly pointed his finger and a storage ring flew in front of Yi Xian. There were exactly 5-star veins in the spatial ring. Sumi Kong smiled and said, Little friend, Xiao Ta is now from my Xian race. Yi Xian put away the spatial ring and nodded. It's yours. Sumi Kong suddenly smiled and said, Little friend, did you come to the 6 realms alone? Of course not. When Yi Xian said this, he quickly stopped and then said, Of course I came alone. Sometimes one had to say the opposite for others to believe. Yi Xian was sometimes very confused about this society. If you told the truth, no one would believe you. If you told a lie, they would believe you. Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and then smiled and said, Little friend, we will meet again. After saying this, he turned and disappeared. Yi Xian looked into the distance, then turned and left. High up in the clouds, Sumi Kong looked at Yi Xian's departing figure and frowned. No one knew what he was thinking. Beside him was an old man. The old man wore a cloud-colored robe. His hands were behind his back and his expression was cold. This person was the Tian clan leader, Tian Chan. Tian Chan suddenly said, You gave him 5-star veins just like that? Sumi Kong smiled and said, I think it's quite worth it. Tian Chan shook his head. I don't like him. Sumi Kong said with a smile, I don't like it either, but there's nothing we can do. Just like he said, we need to have a good reason. Otherwise, what excuse can we use to declare war on the ancient race? After a moment of silence, Tian Chan said, Is Xiao Ta's ability really that overpowered? Sumi Kong's expression gradually turned serious. It should be right. Otherwise, the ancient realm wouldn't do this. Tian Chan said solemnly, Then we can't give them too much time. Sumi Kong nodded. I'm not worried about the ancient race but the nether race and the celestial race. Saying this, he turned his head and looked. I'm afraid that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Tian Chan frowned. At this moment, Sumi Kong said, Contact them and see what their attitude is. If they work together, of course it'll be great. If they don't. Saying this, he sneered. Then everyone just wait and watch the ancient race grow. Tian Chan nodded. I'll go to the nether race. You go to the celestial race. Saying this, he turned and left. Sumi Kong also disappeared on the spot. On the other side, Yi Xian stopped. He opened his palm and a storage ring appeared in his hand. There were 27-star veins in the storage ring. 27-star veins. Yi Xian's lips curled up and he put away the storage ring. He actually needed a lot of star veins. Every time he cultivated, he needed to consume a large amount of spiritual qi. The spiritual qi in Xiao Ta's body wasn't enough to support his cultivation. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly remembered that Xiao Ta had been taken away. Xiao Ta, Yi Xian wasn't worried. No matter whose hands Xiao Ta ended up in, they definitely wouldn't mistreat Xiao Ta. Of course he wouldn't really give up on Xiao Ta. Yi Xian looked around and then disappeared on the spot. About a day later, the leaders of the Nether race, Celestial race, Shimi race, and Sky race suddenly gathered in the ancient world. The leader of the ancient race, Gu Ming, appeared in the sky above the ancient world. He looked at Tian Chan and the others and smiled. Leaders, what brings you to my ancient world today? Shimi Kong, who was in the lead, smiled. Leader Gu Ming, I'll get straight to the point. I'm here today to return something to you. Gu Ming narrowed his eyes. Return. Shimi Kong nodded. Yes. To tell you the truth, Yi Xian belongs to the mountain realm. That pagoda of his also belongs to the mountain realm. I don't know how he offended the ancient clan leader, but the ancient clan leader actually wants to steal his pagoda. In short, I ask the ancient Ming clan leader to return the pagoda. Huh. Gu Ming suddenly laughed. Shimi Kong, don't you think your excuse is laughable? Shimi Kong smiled. It looks like Leader Gu Ming doesn't believe me. Gu Ming narrowed his eyes. Believe? Shimi Kong, do you think I'm an idiot? Shimi Kong coldly said. If Leader Gu Ming doesn't want to return it, then we can only offend you. Gu Ming mockingly said. Shimi Kong, when did you become so hypocritical? If you want to take the tower, then take it. Don't make it sound so grand. Shameless. Shimi Kong coldly said. Everyone, let's do it. His voice fell. Boom. Dozens of powerful presences appeared in the sky above the ancient world. They were all break-world level. Aside from that, there were hundreds of freedom transformation elites. Clearly, the 4 races had sent out their elites. Gu Ming's face was calm. Shimi Kong, do you really want to do this? Shimi Kong coldly said. Ancient Ming, if you are willing to hand over Xiao Ta, we will leave immediately. Gu Ming smiled. There is only one tower and there are 4 of you. Who should I give it to? Shimi Kong mockingly said. What? Do you want to play such a low-level trick in front of us? Gu Ming smiled. Shimi Kong, I will ask you one last time. Do you really want to be this shameless? Shimi Kong squinted his eyes. He suddenly felt a sense of unease. Something was wrong. The elites of the 4 races had gathered. Why was the ancient race so calm? This was not normal. At this time his face changed. He saw the patriarch of the dark race and the patriarch of the god race suddenly disappear. Shimi Kong suddenly turned around and slammed his palm down. Boom. When the palm fell, he fell into an unknown and mysterious space-time abyss. After entering that space-time abyss, a black fist suddenly broke through the air and went straight for his head. Shimi Kong's eyes flashed with anger. He raised his right hand and slammed it down. Boom. When the palm fell, the space-time abyss boiled and was destroyed. It became a black space-time black hole. Shimi Kong's face looked terrible. The one who had attacked him was Underworld leader Nancy. On the other side, Sky leader was being held down by God leader Ku Gon. Trail. Shimi Kong's face looked very ugly. At this time, the ancient Ming suddenly laughed coldly. Shimi Kong, do you really think the ancient race is stupid enough to want to take Xiao Ta for ourselves? The ancient Ming knew very well that the small pagoda's allure was too great. The other 5 races would never give it up, and they definitely wouldn't watch as the ancient race grew bigger. Therefore the ancient race had to find allies. He chose the strongest of the 4 races, the underworld and the god. Shimi Kong looked at underworld leader Nancy. Nancy said calmly, you have your choice. My underworld race has our choice. Shimi Kong suddenly laughed. Good. Very good. But Gu Ming said calmly, kill. As soon as his voice fell, countless ancient clan experts shot up into the sky and charged towards the Sumer race and the other experts. On the other side, the God race and underworld experts also charged at the Shimi race and Sky race experts. Seeing this, Shimi Kong's eyes flashed with ferocity. Retreat. Return to the world. Return to the world. Although the Sky race and Shimi race had many experts, they could not beat the ancient race and the other 2 races together. Returning to the Shimi realm, they still had the power to fight. There was a great formation in the Shimi realm. Hearing Shimi Kong's words, the Shimi elites turned around and fled. It was not difficult for the Break World elites to leave. After all, when they were at their level, as long as they did not want to fight, It would take at least 3 break world elites to keep them here. However, the free embodiment realm experts weren't that strong. In the field, when the Shumi race and Sky race's unrestrained transformed experts retreated, the ancient race and the other 2 races attacked the unrestrained transformed experts of the Sky race and Shumi race. Slaughter. Without a break world expert in front of them, the unrestrained transformed experts of the 2 races were slaughtered. In less than a moment, all the unrestrained transformed experts of the 2 races were killed. However, the unrestrained transformed experts of the Shumi race and Sky race all retreated. In the field, Gu Ming's face was gloomy. This was because he noticed that the Underworld and God race did not really fight the Sky race and Shumi race. Otherwise, they would have killed some break-world experts. Clearly, the Underworld and God race were wary of the Ancient race. At this time, the Underworld race leader Nancy suddenly looked at the Ancient race leader Gu Ming. Look at Xiao Ta. Look at Xiao. The God race leader Ku Gon also looked at Gu Ming. In the field, the atmosphere became tense again. Xiao. All 3 races wanted to keep him in their hands, especially the Ancient race. Now that Xiao Ta was in their hands, how could they be willing to hand him over? After a moment of silence, Gu Ming smiled and said, "Leaders, let's enter the pagoda." As he spoke, he brought Nancy and Ku Gon into Xiao Ta. When they entered Xiao Ta, their expressions instantly changed, because they noticed that the time inside Xiao Ta was actually different from the time outside. Wasn't cultivating in there heaven-defying? No, heaven-defying wasn't enough to describe how terrifying Xiao Ta was. Ku Gon and Nancy glanced at each other and there was a deep sense of shock in their eyes. At this moment, Nancy suddenly said, "This pagoda has a spirit?" Gu Ming nodded. Nancy glanced at the surroundings and said, "Xiao Ta, who created you?" After a moment of silence, Xiao Ta's voice resounded. "My sister. Her name is Tianming and she's a blacksmith. She only knows how to forge treasures and doesn't know how to fight. She's extremely weak. She has many treasures in her possession. Do you want to meet her?" Chapter 2078. Tianming. Inside Xiao Ta, Nancy and the other 2 frowned. They've never heard of this name. Gu Ming asked, "Tianming? Who is she?" Xiao Ta answered, "She's a blacksmith." Gu Ming asked again, "Why haven't we heard of such a powerful blacksmith?" Xiao Ta smiled, "She's been hiding it all this time, how did you know?" At this time Nancy suddenly asked, "She has many treasures on her?" Xiao Ta answered, "Yes." Nancy immediately asked, "Where is she now?" Xiao Ta answered, "The Milky Way." Nancy frowned, "The Milky Way?" Xiao Ta thought for a moment then said, "A very, very far place, you might not be able to find it, I can lead the way for you." Nancy and the other 2 looked at each other in silence. Gu Ming suddenly said, "You seem to want us to find her?" Xiao Ta smiled bitterly, 3 big shots, my pagoda soul is in her hands, she used it to control me. If you can kill her, I will regain my freedom. At that time I, Xiao Ta, am willing to serve you 3 big shots. Gu Ming suddenly asked, "What's your relationship with that Zhou Xian?" Xiao Ta answered, "He's Sister Tianming's brother, ignorant and incompetent, only knows how to act cool." Gu Ming was confused, "That's it?" Xiao Ta answered, "Yes." The 3 looked at each other in silence. At this time Ku Gon suddenly said, "You said that Tianming who forged you only knows the art of forging but isn't strong?" Xiao Ta answered, "Yes. She doesn't know how to fight." Of course, he added in his heart, "She only knows how to kill." Ku Gon's expression was cold. "She reversed the time in this pagoda and you say she's not strong?" Xiao Ta sighed, "She's strong just because she reversed time? It's just a perverted trick. When you catch her and figure out the theory behind it, you'll know how easy it is to do this. Also, if you want to catch her, you have to be quick because little mistress. Oh no, because that Zhou Xian might run away with her. Once she hides again, it will be difficult for you to find her again. Don't blame me for not warning you. Her escaping skills are very good. Once she hides, you won't be able to find her." The 3 of them were silent. Tianming. They had never heard of this person. Actually, the 3 of them were a little tempted. If what Xiao Ta said was true, then this woman named Tianming was a treasure trove. However, the 3 of them still felt that something was amiss. Xiao Ta's words were a little misleading. Nancy suddenly said, "Xiao Ta, what's the background of that woman called Tianming?" Xiao Ta was silent. Nancy frowned. What's wrong? Xiao Ta said, I'm just a tower. How could I possibly know so much? South Priest's expression froze. At this time the ancient Ming suddenly said, You too, what do you think? Ku Gon coldly said, This Xiao Ta is flowery, his words are not true. We can't trust him completely. Nancy also nodded slightly. He also felt that this Xiao Ta was not reliable. But the ancient Ming said, I think we can go see that woman. Nancy and Ku Gon looked at the ancient Ming. The ancient Ming solemnly said, First, if that woman can create a heaven-defying Xiao Ta like Xiao Ta, then she can create other heaven-defying treasures. She must have a lot of treasures on her. Second, even if that woman is powerful with our strength, even if we can't defeat her, can't we retreat unscathed? Nancy and Ku Gon were silent. The ancient Ming continued, Moreover, Sumi Kong and Ku Gon have been in contact with that Zhou Xian. There's no guarantee that they won't cooperate. If the Tian clan and Sumi tribe obtain that woman's treasures, it will be extremely disadvantageous to us. Nancy and Ku Gon looked at each other, then nodded. In the end they still decided to go see that mysterious Tian Ming. Because at the moment, just one Xiao Ta really wasn't enough. Could it be that the three clans would fight? That wouldn't be good. If that Tian Ming had other treasures on her, then this problem would be solved perfectly. Gu Ming glanced at the surroundings and said, Tiny pagoda, take us to see that woman. Xiao Ta said, There's no need to see her. The ancient Ming frowned, What do you mean? Xiao Ta said, Find Zhou Xian, then she will appear. The ancient Ming said solemnly, We don't know where Zhou Xian is right now. Xiao Ta giggled, I know, I'll take you to him. Zhou Xian. The ancient Ming looked at Xiao Ta, then let's go find him. With that the three of them left Xiao. Under Xiao Ta's lead the three of them directly left the ancient realm. In the depths of a mountain range, Zhou Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly raised his head, and in the next moment, a Xiao Ta appeared in front of him. Zhou Xian was stunned when he saw Xiao Ta, then his expression changed greatly because the three ancient Ming also appeared in front of him. Zhou Xian's face was full of black lines. Xiao Ta, what the hell are you doing? Xiao Ta said, Don't talk, watch my performance. Zhou Xian, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Little soul, come here for a moment. The azure sword trembled slightly then flew in front of Xiao Ta. Xiao Ta brought Little Soul to the three ancient Ming. Take this sword and sense it, then you'll be able to sense where she is. Zhou Xian, the ancient Ming looked at Xiao Ta in front of him. Are you sure? Xiao Ta said, I'm sure. If she appears later, remember to act quickly, don't let her escape, she's very fast. The three ancient Ming looked at each other at this time. Ku Gon suddenly said, Something's wrong. Nancy's expression was also gloomy. Indeed, something's wrong. The three looked at the azure sword and when they saw it, a trace of unease arose in their hearts. At this time Xiao Ta suddenly said, So you're afraid. The ancient Ming looked at Xiao Ta. Are you trying to provoke us? Xiao Ta said with a smile, No. Whether you find her or not, it's up to you. The three ancient Ming were silent. At this time Zhou Xian suddenly said angrily, Xiao Ta, you actually let them find Qing. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Xiao Ta said indifferently, I'm just a Ta. Zhou Xian said indifferently. Zhou Xian suddenly said fiercely, Xiao Ta, she created you and you actually brought outsiders to find her. I'll kill you. With that he directly rushed towards Xiao Ta. His speed was very fast and before Xiao Ta could react he directly punched him. Bang! Xiao Ta was directly sent flying. The three ancient Ming were dumbfounded. What is he doing? In the distance Xiao Ta suddenly said, Fuck you. Zhou Xian was about to attack again, but the ancient Ming directly blocked in front of Zhou Xian. He looked at Zhou Xian, Young Master Yi, watch yourself. Zhou Xian coldly looked at the distant Xiao Ta. Selling out your master for glory. I look down on you. With that he looked at the ancient Ming. Let me tell you, don't listen to his nonsense. My sister is very strong. If you find her she will definitely kill you with a sword. Xiao Ta suddenly said, You three think about it. If the brother is so weak, how strong can the sister be? Zhou Xian's expression froze. The ancient Ming glanced at Zhou Xian, then looked at the azure profound sword in front of him. You too, why don't you try? Ku Gon said solemnly, I still feel a little uneasy. The ancient Ming laughed heartily. With the three of us here, do you think she can kill us in a second? With that, he directly held the azure profound sword. In the next moment, the azure profound sword slightly trembled, and a moment later the azure profound sword suddenly burst out with a sword cry. The ancient Ming suddenly looked up, and gradually the space in the horizon directly became illusory, and then the illusory space began to become clear. Yi Xian looked up at the space with a trace of anticipation in his eyes. Ting, it's been a long time since I've seen Qing. She should be fine in the Milky Way, right? No. The Milky Way should be fine, right? At this moment, a woman in a plain dress appeared in the space. She stood by the side of the street, and on both sides of the street there were people walking to and fro. It must be said that standing there in a plain dress, she was undoubtedly the most eye-catching existence in the entire street. Passers-by's eyes would occasionally look at her, not just men, but even women couldn't help but look at her. Beautiful. Not only was she beautiful, but there was also an indescribable temperament about her. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress was standing in front of a watermelon stall. In her hand there was a piece of watermelon missing a corner. Obviously she had already taken a bite. Seeing the woman in the plain dress holding the watermelon, Xiao Ta's mind raced. At this moment he had secretly decided to eat some watermelons in the future. On the other hand, Yi Xian's expression was a little strange. Qing likes to eat watermelons. On the other hand, the ancient Ming and the others frowned. What the hell is this place? The world in the image was completely different from the world they were in. It was strange and strange. One look and they could tell that this was not a good place. At this moment, the woman in front of the woman in the plain dress suddenly smiled. Miss, will you pay in cash or scan? The woman in the plain dress looked at the woman and slightly frowned. The woman hesitated for a moment and then said, Cash, scan. In the six worlds, Xiao Ta suddenly said, It's over. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Ta. What is it? Xiao Ta said in a low voice. Sister Tianming, may not scan. Yi Xian smiled. Qing is omnipotent. She will definitely scan. Xiao Ta. In the Milky Way, the woman in the plain dress looked at the woman in front of her without saying a word. Being stared at by the woman in the plain dress, the woman suddenly felt a little panicked. This, miss, a piece of watermelon is only 2 yuan. At this moment, the woman in the plain dress suddenly opened her right hand. In the six worlds, a watermelon suddenly flew out of a watermelon field. The watermelon carried a strand of sword qi as it soared into the sky. Then, it instantly tore through the spacetime barrier of tens of millions of starfields, destroying countless stars along the way. As soon as the watermelon entered the Milky Way, the atmosphere above the Milky Way was suddenly torn open, causing the entire Earth to violently tremble. In the end, the watermelon fell into the woman's palm. She put the watermelon in front of the street vendor. Here you go. Then she turned and left. Everyone asking for votes. For God's sake, please give me one. It's too tragic. I've never been in the top 10 of the monthly votes. If I don't have a ticket, I can give a tip. Chapter 2079. Dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. Yi Xian looked at the Qing'er on the screen with his mouth wide open enough to stuff an egg inside. The small pagoda trembled slightly. He was extremely worried about the Milky Way. That watermelon almost destroyed the Milky Way. Damn. The Milky Way was almost destroyed because of a watermelon? Can you believe it? The three ancient Ming's expressions were extremely solemn. Although the plain-dressed woman only sent a watermelon over, she made it travel through the space-time barrier of tens of millions of galaxies. Was that even something a human could do? The three of them only wanted to say one thing. Holy shit. One had to know that the watermelon itself wasn't some divine item. Just how terrifying was the power needed to make a watermelon travel through countless universes? Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. The plain-dressed woman appeared on top of an abandoned building. She turned around and her gaze fell on Yi Xian. Who bullied you? Who bullied you? Before Yi Xian could speak, Xiao Ta suddenly said, Sister Tianming, it's those three. They bullied the young lord and even said they would destroy her soul so that she would never be reincarnated. Yi Xian. The three ancient Ming frowned at Xiao Ta's words. The plain-dressed woman suddenly looked at the three ancient Ming. The ancient Ming was about to speak, but the woman suddenly said, If you have anything to say it in your next life. With that, the sword in her hand suddenly flew up. Swish. In the 6 realms above Yi Xian's group, a sword suddenly pierced through the air. It was the walking sword. The 3 ancient Ming's expressions changed drastically at the sight of the walking sword. A hint of ferocity flashed through Gu Ming's eyes, and he suddenly clenched his right hand into a fist. A moment later he stomped his right foot on the ground and shot into the sky. When he got close to the descending sword he suddenly punched out. The moment he punched out, the surrounding space boiled. However, the moment his fist came into contact with the green profound sword, swish. The Xianxia sword pierced straight through the ancient Ming's fist and entered his body through his fist. Boom. In the blink of an eye, the ancient Ming was like a deflated balloon. Countless forces swept out from his body and were annihilated. Instant kill. The surroundings were instantly silent to the point a pin drop could be heard. The ancient Ming was instantly killed. Yi Xian and Xiao Ta were not surprised. Wasn't it normal for Qing to kill people in seconds? Nancy and Ku Gan were completely dumbstruck. One strike. The ancient Ming was killed in one move? At this moment their minds had already gone blank. To the side, the ancient Ming who had yet to completely disappear had a confused look in his eyes. He opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but no words came out. Just like that, his soul disappeared bit by bit. At this moment the stride sword floated out from his soul, and in the next moment the stride sword slashed towards Ku Gan. Ku Gan's expression changed drastically. He didn't retreat because he knew he couldn't. The speed of this sword was already abnormal. He couldn't dodge it at all. Ku Qian took a step forward. With this step the walk sword was enveloped by a white light. The daybreak world. However, the walk sword had only just entered the daybreak world when it was instantly annihilated. Ku Gan's face was ashen when he witnessed this scene. At this moment, there was only a single thought in his mind: I'm finished. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, the walk sword had already entered the center of his forehead. Bang! Ku Gan's body shook violently, and then his body and soul started to be annihilated. His soul was swiftly annihilated. He was instantly killed again. Ku Gan's eyes were filled with disbelief as he gazed at the woman in a plain dress. He hadn't finished speaking when the walk sword suddenly flew out and his body and soul vanished. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly opened his palm and 2 spatial rings floated over to him. The spatial rings of Ku Gan and the ancient Ming. Yi Xian glanced at them, and it didn't take long for his eyelids to twitch before he hurriedly put them away. Meanwhile, Nancy spoke with a trembling voice. I surrender. Surrender. Yi Xian and Xiao Ta were stunned. Nancy spoke with a trembling voice. Say. I surrender. Surrender. Yi Xian's expression became slightly strange. Meanwhile, Xiao Ta said, Aren't you too spineless? You surrender just like that. You should at least resist a little. Nancy glanced at Xiao Ta and cursed in his heart. Damn it, it's easy for you to say that. Resist? Would I still be alive if I resisted? Meanwhile, the woman in a plain dress opened her palm, and the walk sword appeared in her hand. She hadn't chosen to kill Nancy. The woman in a plain dress turned around and looked down. From her position she could see half of the city. The woman in a plain dress remained silent as she looked down. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he said, Qing. The woman in a plain dress turned around to look at Yi Xian. What's wrong? Yi Xian asked. Is she all right? The woman in a plain dress nodded. She's not dead. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman in a plain dress asked, You know her? Yi Xian nodded. She's helped me a lot. He felt that it was necessary to put in a good word for Arya. He had a very good impression of this little girl and she was a very loyal little girl. The woman in a plain dress nodded slightly and then she said, She's over there. Is she all right? Yi Xian smiled and said, She's all right. As he spoke he seemed to have thought of something and he hurriedly said, Qing. I have a few questions to ask you. Qing nodded. All right. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Qing there are 2 realms. One is breaking circle and the other is drawing circle. However, I didn't choose to walk on these 2 realms. Instead, I chose to enter the circle. You should know that I've entered your circle, right? Qing nodded slightly. Yes. Yi Xian said in a low voice, After I entered your circle, I comprehended a wonderful state, which is meditation. However, I don't know how to go next. Qing thought for a moment and then said, focus. Yi Xian frowned, focus. Qing nodded slightly. After you calm your heart, you can focus your mind. Mind is also called the spirit or the soul. After you calm your heart, concentrate your mental power and soul's power on one point, and then use the sword from the heart. Yi Xian said in a low voice, use the sword from the heart. Heart sword. Qing nodded. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I've comprehended the heart sword a long time ago. These years I've always felt that I'm walking on the same old path. Qing smiled faintly. It's normal. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Normal? Qing turned around to look down at the city and then she said in a light voice, look at these people. For the sake of making a living, they leave every single day in the morning and return at night. Practically every single day of the year is boring. What is their life? Work, eat, sleep. Day after day, year after year until the end of their lives. As she spoke, she turned to look at Yi Xian. It's not just them, everything in this world repeats itself, like the sunrise and sunset, like the ebb and flow of the tide, like the flower blooming and wilting. Repetition isn't a bad thing. Every repetition is a new cycle and also a new starting point. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then said, can you put it in simpler terms? At the side, Nancy suddenly said, this seems to be very simple already. I understand everything, young friend. At this time, a sword flew out of nowhere and directly entered Nancy's mouth. Bang! Blood spurted out from the back of Nancy's head. It was the walking sword. However, the walking sword didn't kill him, it just froze him. Nancy was dumbfounded. The woman in the plain dress glanced coldly at Nancy. Are you very smart? Nancy's expression was extremely ugly. When did I suffer such injustice? But he didn't have the slightest thought of resisting. This woman is strong to the point of instilling despair in me. The woman in the plain dress paid no attention to Nancy and she gazed at Yi Xian instead. The heart sword is divided into many different types, and many types are divided into many layers, and many layers are divided into different realms. She hesitated for a moment when she spoke up to hear and then she said, it's truly difficult to explain with words, but you don't have to care about all of that. I'll simplify it for you. Cultivate concentration and do as I say. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it for now, we can cultivate it first and then slowly understand it afterwards. Yi Xian was speechless. Nancy was flabbergasted. Damn it. You can play it like that? How is cultivating any different from cheating? Yi Xian nodded slightly. All right. Then I'll cultivate concentration. He hesitated for a moment when he spoke up to hear and then he asked, Qing, when that person resisted your walking sword just now, he used a special type of space, the daytime space. There's a mysterious power of time passing within that space. Can you describe that type of space? Qing fell silent. Yi Xian's brows knit together slightly. You don't know. Qing shook her head. I'm thinking about how to simplify what I know so that you'll be able to understand it. Yi Xian's face froze. Xiao Ta hesitated for a moment and then he said, young master, you should work hard and read more books in the future. Otherwise it would be too embarrassing. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Qing said, the realms in this world of yours are a mess, so I'll simplify it for you. Now I'll divide it for you. There are only two types of space. One is normal space. What is normal space? This is the space-time where all living things live. This space-time is the normal space-time. There is another space-time called the special space-time. This special space-time is more complicated because there are many types. The White Day realm that you saw just now is just one of them. It's very complicated how this special space is formed. To put it simply, time flows at a different speed than normal space. Yi Xian asked again, why does time flow at a different speed than the outside world? Qing thought for a moment and then she said, because the density of space is different. Yi Xian frowned slightly and then he continued to ask, because the density of space is different. Qing was silent for a long time and then she said, because when each type of space is formed, there are various factors that cause the density of space to be different. For example, the difference in the spiritual qi in each space will also affect the density of space. More importantly, there are some special substances in space that are difficult for ordinary people to see, and it's not something that can be explained in a few words. Yi Xian nodded slightly and then he asked again, how is this space formed? Also, how are those substances formed? Boom. The abandoned building under Qing'er's feet suddenly turned into nothingness. Next to Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said in a trembling voice, young master, can you ask some questions about the world of the living? Sister Qing'er won't be angry with you, but it doesn't mean she won't be angry. If you ask again, the Milky Way will disappear. Yi Xian. Chapter 2080. Yi Xian looked at Qing'er, hesitated and then said, Qing'er said softly, you're still lacking in knowledge. There are many things you don't understand. That's normal. When she spoke up to this point, she thought for a moment and then she opened her palm. An ancient book suddenly appeared in her palm. Yi Xian was curious. What's this? Qing'er said, I prepared it for you. It contains some basic knowledge. You can find the answers to any questions you have about swordsmanship and martial arts. The ancient book floated out and appeared in front of Yi Xian the next moment. Yi Xian hurriedly bent down to catch the ancient book. He opened it and saw that the first page was Spirit Concentration. Focus. Yi Xian was taken aback. Then a white light entered his forehead. Boom. Yi Xian's body trembled. Soon a lot of information rushed into his brain. Focus. Among the information, Qing'er gave him a detailed introduction on how to cultivate. Qing'er also made very detailed notes on some space-time knowledge, as if she was afraid that he wouldn't be able to understand. Qing'er suddenly said, cultivate slowly. If you feel tired, then don't cultivate. Yi Xian was stunned. He looked at Qing'er. Don't cultivate? Qing'er nodded. I'll protect you forever. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Qing'er suddenly turned around and looked towards the horizon in the distance. There were a few dozen flying objects in the distance. A voice came from the sky. Cultivator, you've been surrounded. Raise your hands now. Now. Dozens of red lines were aimed at the woman in the plain dress. The woman in the plain dress turned to look. Let's talk next time. With that, the image suddenly disappeared. Beside Yi Xian, Xiao Ta said in a trembling voice, it's over. It's over. The Milky Way is done for. Yi Xian was speechless. Meanwhile, Nancy intended to leave. Yi Xian looked at Nancy and asked with a smile, where are you going? South's face froze. He hesitated for a moment before he said, Young Master Yi, do you have any instructions for me? Yi Xian smiled and said, South Division Patriarch, don't you think you should express your gratitude? Nancy glanced at Yi Xian, hesitated for a moment and then said, Young Master Yi, what kind of compensation do you want? Yi Xian opened his palm and 2 storage rings appeared in his hand. They were the storage rings of the ancient Ming Patriarch and the ancient Ming Patriarch. He looked at Nancy without saying anything. How could Nancy not understand? He immediately handed his storage ring to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is a small token of my appreciation, please accept it. Yi Xian said with a straight face, I'm not that kind of person. Nancy's expression froze. Yi Xian was a little unhappy. Do you think I'm the kind of person who bullies others? Let me tell you I'm not. Nancy's expression was extremely ugly. Damn it, aren't you? Of course, he didn't dare to say the truth. He immediately smiled and said, Young Master Yi, I've given you a lot of trouble in the past. This is a small token of my appreciation as an apology. Please accept it, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian put away the storage ring and said, South Division Patriarch, since this is a token of your appreciation, then I'll accept it. Nancy hurriedly nodded. Thank you, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian nodded slightly. South Division Patriarch, I have another presumptuous request. You don't mind, right? Nancy was a little hesitant. Please speak, Young Master Yi. Yi Xian smiled. Not now, but if I need any help in the future. You also know that I have no one to rely on here. I don't even have a helper, so... South Division Patriarch immediately said, if Young Master Yi needs anything in the future, just let me know. Just give the order. Our Nether Clan's original Young Master Yi will not hesitate to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of flames. Yi Xian was stunned. Why has this fellow suddenly become so proactive? Actually, South Division Patriarch was unwilling in the beginning. But later on he thought about it in a different way. Wouldn't it be an extremely good thing if the Nether tribe could ride on Yi Xian's coattails? This might be an enormous opportunity for the Nether tribe. Because that woman in a plain dress was truly too terrifying. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Thank you so much, Leader Nancy." South Division Patriarch hurriedly said, No. It's an honor for my Nether tribe to be able to serve young Master Yi. It's an enormous honor. Yi Xian was speechless. South Division Patriarch hesitated for a moment before he said, "Young Master Yi, can I ask you a question?" Yi Xian gazed at South Division Patriarch and said with a smile, "Go ahead and ask." South Division Patriarch fell silent for a moment before he said, "Who was that senior just now?" Yi Xian roared with laughter. "She's my younger sister." Younger sister. South Division Patriarch spoke in a low voice. Was she really young Master Ye's younger sister? Yi Xian nodded. "You don't seem to believe me." South Division Patriarch smiled with embarrassment and didn't speak. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Are you wondering why the younger sister is so strong while the older brother isn't so strong?" South Division Patriarch smiled with embarrassment and didn't speak. Yi Xian sighed softly. "To tell you the truth, I'm actually very strong as well. However, I encountered a slight problem in my cultivation that day." South Division Patriarch frowned slightly. "Young Master Yi is recultivating?" Yi Xian hurriedly nodded. "Yes. I'm recultivating. Moreover, I've lost some of my memories. Once I recover them completely, then there won't be anyone in the universe that I can't deal with a single strike of my sword." South Division Patriarch glanced at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Regardless of whether it was true or not, it was fine so long as he knew what was going on. Yi Xian was just about to speak when two powerful auras suddenly appeared here. It was the Xumi race's patriarch Xumi Kong, and the Tian race's patriarch Tian Chan. Both of them glanced at their surroundings and frowned slightly. Xumi Kong spoke in a low voice. "What happened?" Yi Xian smiled. "It's nothing. The Gu race's patriarch and God race's patriarch have withered away. They're gone." Both of them were stunned. Xumi Kong turned to look at South Division Patriarch. "You did it." South Division Patriarch glanced at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Xumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. "You did it." Yi Xian laughed. "Who do you think did it?" Xumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. "Yi Xian, don't play tricks here. You." South Division Patriarch suddenly laughed coldly. "Xumi Kong, you really are a brainless person." Xumi Kong looked at South Division Patriarch with narrowed eyes. "What do you mean?" South Division Patriarch sighed. "Xumi Kong, 2 Break World elites died just now. Do you want to be the third?" He actually wanted Xumi Kong to provoke Yi Xian, but he was afraid. He was afraid that the plain-clothed woman would appear again. That woman clearly had a bad temper. If she appeared again and killed him while killing Xumi Kong and Yi Xian, how wronged would he be? He really didn't want to see that plain-clothed woman again. Too scary. Hearing South Division Patriarch's words, Xumi Kong frowned slightly. He looked at Yi Xian again. Yi Xian smiled and said, "I'm leaving." After that he put away Xiao Ta and turned to leave. At that moment Xumi Kong suddenly said, "Wait." Yi Xian turned to look at Xumi Kong. "What is it?" Xumi Kong hesitated and then said, "Then Xiao Ta." South Division Patriarch suddenly became angry. "Xumi Kong, are you retarded? Is that right? Are you retarded? You bastard." Yi Xian was speechless. Xumi Kong was furious as well. "South Division Patriarch, don't play tricks on me. I won't fall for it. You." At that moment, Tian Chan suddenly retreated to South Division Patriarch's side. Xumi Kong didn't understand, but he did. Who was South Division Patriarch? He was the Netherworld Patriarch. In the entire 6 realms, his strength was second only to the God Race Patriarch Kugan. South Division Patriarch's attitude towards Yi Xian was very abnormal. Respect. Why was South Division Patriarch so respectful to Yi Xian? Clearly, the deaths of Kugan and the ancient Ming were related to Yi Xian. If Yi Xian could kill those two, then he could kill them. Offending Yi Xian at a time like this was not a wise decision. Seeing Tian Chan stand behind South Division Patriarch, Xumi Kong frowned. "Tian Chan, what is the meaning of this?" Tian Chan was silent. He felt helpless. Damn it. Why was Xumi Kong like an idiot? At this moment Yi Xian suddenly spread out Xiao Ta and smiled. "Patriarch Xumi Kong, You want this Xiao Ta? Xumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and said in a low voice, Yi Xian, don't forget that you sold this Xiao Ta to me. Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, I think so. Xumi Kong said in a low voice, this Xiao Ta belongs to my Xumi race. Xiao Ta suddenly said, what makes you think I'm yours? Xumi Kong glanced at Lil Tower. He already sold you to me. Xiao Ta said angrily. He said he sold me to you so I'm yours? Xumi Kong frowned slightly. What do you mean? Xiao Ta said indifferently. What do I mean? I said I sold the 6 realms to you. Now the 6 realms are yours. Xumi Kong's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at Yi Xian. What? You're not going to keep your word? Yi Xian was about to speak when Xiao Ta suddenly said, it has nothing to do with young master. He doesn't have any rights to me. My rights are with master. He has no right to sell me to you. Xumi Kong said angrily, didn't you call him young master? Xiao Ta said angrily, you know he's young master as well? There's an old master above him and the old master isn't dead yet. So he can't inherit me. Yi Xian's face darkened. Damn it. What the hell is this Xiao Ta talking about? Xumi Kong slowly clenched his right hand. I can tell. Both of you are playing with me. Xiao Ta was slightly speechless. Old fellow, you're the one who's a joke. Why do you believe his words? Xumi Kong said angrily, you stupid tower. Shut up. Xiao Ta. Xumi Kong looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, when you sold it to me, the old man only asked you one question. Do you admit it? Yi Xian nodded. I admit it. Saying so, he looked at Xiao Ta. It's yours. Xumi Kong looked at Xiao Ta. You stupid tower, did you hear that? Your master admits it. Xiao Ta suddenly looked at Yi Xian. Young master, how many star veins did you sell me for? Yi Xian hesitated and then said, 5. Xiao Ta was furious. Young master, you wastrel. I'm the family heirloom that your father left for you and you only sold me 5 star veins? Can't you sell a bit more? Yi Xian. P.S. The story of the Milky Way galaxy will only appear in the foreign chapters. The new foreign chapters are already in the process of being written. Finally, please vote. Please. Please use votes to insult me. Chapter 2081. When he heard Xiao Ta's words, Xumi Kong's expression instantly turned ugly. He finally understood. This man and tower were playing with him. Xumi Kong clenched his right hand and punched at Yi Xian. In the distance, Yi Xian's expression was calm, and he had no intention of attacking. Meanwhile, South Priest suddenly stood in front of Yi Xian, and then he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. Boom. Their powerful powers had just come into contact when the starry sky around them boiled and then was annihilated. Then the two of them entered a mysterious space-time abyss. Xumi Kong stared at Nancy. Nancy, what are you doing? Nancy turned to look at Yi Xian and waited for Yi Xian's instructions. Yi Xian smiled and said, I'll do it. Nancy was stunned. Young Master Yi, you? Yi Xian nodded slightly. He glanced at Xumi Kong and smiled. I'll do it. Actually, he had wanted to fight a Breakworld expert for a long time. Because he didn't know what level his combat power was at. In any case, Avalokitesvara was absolutely no match for him, and he wanted to see if he could kill a Breakworld expert. At that moment, Nancy hesitated and said, Young Master Yi, are you sure? Yi Xian smiled and said, Don't worry. If I can't beat him, I'll call for help. As he spoke, he walked towards Xumi Kong. Nancy's expression froze when he heard Yi Xian's words. Call for help? When he thought of that terrifying woman in a plain dress, he couldn't help but feel terrified. At that moment, Yi Xian had walked in front of Xumi Kong. He looked at Xumi Kong and smiled. Do it. Xumi Kong looked at Yi Xian and said, You overestimate yourself. As soon as he spoke, he flipped his right hand, and Yi Xian was instantly sent into the daytime world. However, Yi Xian's expression was calm and he didn't panic at all. In next to no time, Xumi Kong frowned because he noticed that nothing had happened to Yi Xian in the Daybreak realm. At this moment, Yi Xian took a step forward. With this step, he directly left the Daybreak realm. When they saw this, the expressions of the 3 Breakworld experts changed. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. He came out just like that. Xumi Kong looked at Yi Xian like he was looking at a monster. Yi Xian flicked his thumb and the green profound sword flew out. In the blink of an eye, it arrived in front of Sumi Kong. Sumi Kong's expression instantly changed drastically. He was just about to attack when his hair instantly turned white. Moreover, his entire body started vanishing at a visible speed. On the other hand, Nancy and Tianchan's expressions changed drastically, and they retreated explosively. This retreat was over 100 kilometers away. Both of them looked at Zhou Xian in the distance with shock in their eyes. Time passed. Because time was passing in the area where Zhou Xian was, and it was passing at a speed that was even more terrifying than the daylight world. The green profound sword stopped around 10 inches away from Sumi Kong's forehead. At this moment, Sumi Kong was as old as a piece of rotten wood. His lifespan had come to an end. Zhou Xian's attack had severed his lifespan. Meanwhile, Zhou Xian opened his palm and the green profound sword returned to his grasp. Sumi Kong suddenly spoke in a hoarse voice. "What is this attack called?" Zhou Xian stopped moving. He thought for a moment and said, "Life-severing. Life-severing." Sumi Kong's eyes were filled with confusion. In the distance, Zhou Xian suddenly said, "I'm sorry. I didn't expect you to be so weak. However, this is already my weakest attack." Alas. Sumi Kong was speechless. When he saw that Zhou Xian was about to leave, Sumi Kong used the last of his strength to ask, "Since you're so strong, why are you pretending to be so weak?" Zhou Xian turned his head to look at Sumi Kong and then he said, "Acting cool, understand?" Sumi Kong died on the spot. Zhou Xian disappeared at the end of the horizon with small pagoda. Nancy and Tianchan fell silent. At this moment Zhou Xian turned back and the two of them were stunned. Zhou Xian smiled sheepishly. "I was so pretentious that I forgot to bring something." As he spoke, he opened his palm and Sumi Kong's spatial ring flew into his hand. Then he turned and disappeared into the horizon. Nancy and Tianchan were dumbfounded. After a long time, Tianchan said solemnly, "Did he kill Gu Ming and the others?" Nancy was silent for a moment before he said, "Would you believe me if I said no?" Tianchan looked at Nancy. "No." Nancy said softly, "His sister killed them. Who knows how many star regions they are separated by?" Tianchan said solemnly, "His sister? Is she very strong?" Nancy looked at Tianchan. "Why should we? Oh no, if we fight young Master Yi we can still live. If we fight his sister." As he said this, he shook his head. "Just wait for death." Tianchan was speechless. Nancy suddenly asked, "Why is Sumi Kong so stupid? He shouldn't be." Tianchan was silent for a moment before he said, "I didn't expect him to be so stupid." South sighed in a low voice. "We still need to keep a low profile and be humble. Why did Gu Ming die? Because of arrogance." He still remembered Gu Ming's words. "I don't believe she can kill me. Try and die. One shouldn't be too high profile." Zhou Xian brought Xiao Ta and appeared in the clouds. At this moment Zhou Xian was very excited. Life. He didn't expect the sword skill he created to be so powerful. 1/2/life. When that sword came down, not even a Break World elite could block it. That was too scary. At this moment Xiao Ta suddenly said, "Young master, if I knew you were so strong, I wouldn't have played those fancy tricks." Zhou Xian laughed. "Xiao Ta, do you think I'm strong too?" Xiao Ta said, "You're a bit stronger than before." As he said this, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "Young master, aren't you worried about me being captured?" Zhou Xian said seriously, "Worried? I think I should be worried about Gu Ming and the others." Xiao Ta was stunned and then said excitedly, "Why?" Zhou Xian said seriously, "Who are you? You are the #1 tower in the universe. I really can't think of anyone who can kill you with your intelligence aside from the 3 swords." Xiao Ta smiled. "Young master, be low profile. Low profile." Zhou Xian sighed. "Gu Ming and the others meeting you is their misfortune." Xiao Ta laughed. "Young master, actually I think you're quite strong. Although your power isn't as strong as master, you're still young. Let me tell you, when master was your age he was far weaker than you." Zhou Xian carefully looked around and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Dad is still very strong." Xiao Ta smiled. "When master was your age he really wasn't as strong as you. Plus, master had a backer in the past. Although he wasn't as strong as your backer, he still relied on others. Anyway, in my heart, young master, you aren't any weaker than him. You wanting to surpass him is just a matter of time. Yi Xian smiled. Xiaota, you followed Dad for a long time. I believe that Dad's achievements today are partly due to you. Xiaota laughed. Low profile. Low profile. Huh. Yi Xian looked around and felt a bit guilty. Then he turned around and disappeared. Not long after, Yi Xian arrived at the spiritual world. Ling Tian already knew about the fall of the ancient Ming and the others. She also knew that it was related to Yi Xian. Inside the room, Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian. You did it? Yi Xian smiled. You mean the ancient Ming? Ling Tian nodded. Yi Xian said with a smile, I killed him. Ling Tian frowned. You killed all three? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Plus I only used one sword. He paused for a bit before continuing. There's also Xiaota. The two of us joined hands and killed all three of them. Xiaota quickly replied. Yes. I joined hands with the young master and killed all three of them. It was as easy as blowing off dust. It was just a bit of a waste of words. At this point it hurriedly stopped. Ling Tian looked at Yi Xian and did not speak. Yi Xian said, You don't believe me? Ling Tian sighed. You couldn't have killed them. Yi Xian smiled. If you don't believe me, you can ask Nancy. After that he turned around and entered Xiaota. Ling Tian hesitated for a moment before turning around and vanishing on the spot. Not long after, Ling Tian arrived at the spiritual world. She found Nancy. Nancy was silent for a bit before saying, He said he killed them? Ling Tian nodded. Nancy said, Then he killed them. Ling Tian's expression froze. Nancy looked at Ling Tian. Yes, young Master Yi killed 3 Break World elites with one sword. Ling Tian's face was full of black lines. He isn't that strong. Nancy sighed. Don't worry about this. If young Master Yi said he was invincible, I would believe him. Ling Tian was speechless. Nancy suddenly said, Ling Tian leader, young Master Yi and your spirit clan. Ling Tian said, Best friends. He was not stupid. She knew that even if the 3 of them were not killed by Yi Xian must have had something to do with it. Did she not see Nancy call Yi Xian young Master Yi? At this time Nancy suddenly said, Ling Tian leader, let's form an alliance. Ling Tian looked at Nancy. Alliance? Nancy nodded. Alliance, forever good friends. Ling Tian was speechless. A moment later Ling Tian said in a low voice, South ruler, what exactly happened? Can you tell me? Nancy was silent for a while and said, Young Master Yi. He is a 2nd generation. Ling Tian was speechless. Inside Xiaota's room, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. At this moment he had entered a wonderful state of meditation. After entering this state he began to focus. Was it difficult to focus? Very, very difficult. But for Yi Xian it was not difficult at all. Why? Because Qing had explained this realm in detail. Not only that, but he had also taught him how to cultivate. Qing had given him the solution to all his problems. One day later, Yi Xian had successfully entered that state of focus. At this time Yi Xian seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked, I wonder what happened to those guys who surrounded Qing. Xiaota said in a low voice, Young master, you should ask what happened to the Milky Way. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 2082. Would Qing destroy the Milky Way galaxy? Yi Xian didn't know. He only knew that the Milky Way galaxy might be in trouble. A moment later Yi Xian came to the daylight spacetime. Because of the Qingxian sword, the power of the daylight realm had no effect on him. Not only that, but the power of the Life Slayer became even more terrifying in the daylight realm. Because the power of time was everywhere in the daylight realm, the Qingxian sword could directly mobilize it. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. He entered the daylight realm not to mobilize the power of time, but to see the power of the spirit concentration realm. The moment his eyes were closed, Yi Xian directly entered the state of meditation, and then he entered the state of spirit concentration. At this moment his mental power and the power of his divine soul were highly concentrated. Yi Xian suddenly pointed with his thumb. Buzz. The Qingxian sword directly flew out. Boom. In an instant the daylight realm was directly annihilated. The corner of Yi Xian's mouth lifted slightly. The power of this sword was much, much stronger than the previous one. In the state of meditation everything was clear, and in the state of spirit concentration oneself was clear. The biggest difference between the two was that one recognized everything and the other recognized oneself. In the state of spirit concentration he could exert everything of his body to the extreme. Invincible. Zhou Xian had this feeling again. Now he had not only reached the spirit concentration realm, but also created a terrifying sword skill like Life Slayer. The breaking realm? He was no longer his opponent. But Zhou Xian's mind was still clear. He didn't forget the rule that he couldn't stay cool for more than 3 days. As if thinking of something, Zhou Xian opened his palm, and 4 storage rings appeared in his hand. There were nearly 50 star veins in the storage rings. These 50 star veins were the private property of Gu Ming and the others. It wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a lot either. In addition to what Ling Tian had given him, he now had 75 star pulses. Star pulses were very useful for break world elites. In other words, for a long time in the future star pulses would not depreciate. Zhou Xian put away the spatial ring and left. He arrived at a starry sky. He looked around and smiled. Xiao Ta, we have to go to the next universe. Xiao Ta said, yes. Zhou Xian smiled and asked, Xiao Ta, do you have any expectations for the next world? After a moment of silence Xiao Ta said, I hope that the people of the next world are a bit stronger. Otherwise that would be too boring. Life is only interesting when it's a little difficult. Zhou Xian laughed, yes. Let's bid farewell to the Ling Tian patriarch. As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of sword light and vanished on the spot. Spiritual realm. Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian in front of him and frowned. You're leaving. Zhou Xian nodded. It's time to go. Ling Tian was a bit puzzled. Why? Zhou Xian thought for a moment and said, there are no opponents here. Ling Tian's expression froze. Zhou Xian suddenly smiled. Elder Ling Tian, do you know where is more dangerous? Ling Tian thought for a moment and said, are you serious? Zhou Xian nodded. The more dangerous the place, the better. Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian. There is a place that may be suitable for you. However, that place is really dangerous. Zhou Xian laughed. The more dangerous, the better. Ling Tian was silent for a moment and said, the dead world. Zhou Xian frowned. The dead world? Ling Tian nodded. It's a very mysterious place. No one in the 6 realms dares to go there, including the experts in the breaking world realm. Zhou Xian smiled. How do I go there? Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian. Don't you want to understand it first? Zhou Xian shook his head. No need. Ling Tian hesitated for a moment and pointed at Zhou Xian's eyebrows. Boom. A message entered Zhou Xian's eyebrows. Zhou Xian smiled. Elder Ling Tian, goodbye. After that he was about to leave. At this time Ling Tian suddenly said, wait. Zhou Xian looked at Ling Tian. What's wrong? Ling Tian said in a deep voice. I can understand that you want adventure and excitement. However, that place is really not that simple. After you go there you better be careful. Zhou Xian nodded. Ling Tian nodded. Take care. Zhou Xian smiled. See you later. After that he rode his sword and disappeared at the end of the sky. Ling Tian looked at Zhou Xian's sword light in the distant sky and frowned. Zhou Xian left the 6 realms and went straight to the dead world. The dead world. He was not afraid at all. Why? Because when he heard this name he knew that place was full of death chi and he could absorb death chi. Moreover, with his current strength apart from the 3 swords, who else could compete with the green profound sword? He did not dare to say that he was invincible, but he felt that in this world, except for the 3 swords, no one was his opponent. Thinking of this, Zhou Xian could not help but chuckle. He seemed to be a little arrogant. At this time Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, should we act tough in a low profile or high profile? Zhou Xian thought for a while and said, what do you think? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice. Why don't we pretend to be weak to eat the tiger? I think that's good. We pretend that we are weak and wait for people without intelligence to provoke us. Then we recover our strength and beat them up. Then if the enemy has intelligence they will immediately admit defeat. If the enemy has no intelligence they will call us father or ancestor. Then we can continue to act tough. Zhou Xian was speechless. Xiao Ta continued. We can act tough in a high profile. Anyway, with our current strength except for the 3 swords, no one is a match for us. And the 3 swords are on our side. In this case, why should we not act tough? Why not? Yi Xian thought for a while and said, that makes sense. As he spoke, he laughed heartily and sped up. Before long, Yi Xian and Xiao Ta arrived at the dead world. As soon as they entered the dead world, Yi Xian frowned. He knew why this place was called the dead world. It was really a gloomy place. Moreover, there was no vitality at all. It was strange everywhere. Yi Xian glanced at the surroundings and then he walked into the distance. In a short while he arrived at a river and there was a blood-red stone tablet erected at the side of the river. There were 2 words carved on the stone tablet. Dead Man's River. Dead Man's River. Yi Xian sized up the Dead Man's River. The water was muddy and there was a mysterious force enveloping it. So he could not see the bottom of the river at all. Yi Xian hesitated and said, Xiao Ta, do you want to go down and take a look? Xiao Ta said in a deep voice, young master, are you afraid? Yi Xian said with a serious expression, how could I be? Xiao Ta said, with your current strength no one can kill you. No matter where you go you'll be a big shot. Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he nodded. That makes sense. As he spoke he walked towards the Dead Man's River. When he arrived at the riverside he suddenly frowned. Meanwhile the middle of the river rippled, and then a woman floated out slowly from within it. The woman wore a thin red veil and she had a graceful figure. Everything beneath the veil was faintly discernible, and it was extremely alluring. What temptation! Yi Xian thought of this word. The woman glanced at Yi Xian but she didn't say anything. She just took out a comb and started to comb her hair. She combed very slowly, gently and gently. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment and then he said in his heart, Xiao Ta, what should we do now? Xiao Ta said, hit her. Yi Xian's face darkened. Just like that. Xiao Ta said, this woman is obviously an expert. Let's exchange a few blows. Just don't kill her. Our goal is to lose, not to kill. Yi Xian glanced at the woman in the distance and the woman suddenly asked, what's the matter? Yi Xian thought for a moment and then he said, ask for a beating. The woman frowned slightly. Ask for a beating? Yi Xian roared with laughter. Yes. The woman thought for a moment and then she nodded. All right. Yi Xian was about to speak when the woman suddenly vanished on the spot. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he used his thumb to lightly push the green profound sword forward. But in the next moment Yi Xian's pupils constricted because he noticed that his green profound sword had mysteriously returned to its sheath. What's going on? Yi Xian hadn't even reacted when a hand grabbed his throat. Boom. In the blink of an eye Yi Xian's physical body shattered, and at the same time, the woman's finger touched the space between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Boom. Yi Xian's soul trembled violently, and then it was as if his body had been fixed on the spot. Yi Xian was stunned. At this moment Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, even if you want to act tough in a low profile, you don't have to be so low profile. Don't go easy on me too much. Yi Xian. The woman looked at Yi Xian. In millions of years this is the first time I've met someone with such a request. Yi Xian. The woman suddenly opened her palm and Yi Xian's green profound sword flew into her hand. She used her right hand to clamp the green profound sword's blade, and then she used the momentum to cut down lightly. When she reached the tip of the sword she exerted force with 2 fingers. Boom. The green profound sword shook violently. It didn't shatter, but a crack appeared on the green profound sword's blade. However, it returned to normal in an instant. Not only that, a crack appeared on the woman's fingers and blood flowed out. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's expression instantly changed. Could break the green profound sword. Damn it. This time his acting tough had failed. The woman frowned slightly and she looked at Yi Xian. Your sword is interesting. Yi Xian was silent. What did he say? His acting tough had failed and he had nothing to say. The woman suddenly opened her palm and Xiao Ta appeared in her hand. She looked at Xiao Ta and then said, reverse time. At this moment Xiao Ta suddenly said, young master, hit her. Yi Xian's face was full of black lines. The woman looked at Xiao Ta and then said, it seems like he can't beat me. Xiao Ta said in a low voice, nonsense. My young master was invincible just now, how could he not beat you? He just wanted to act tough in a low profile. Young master, get her. Yi Xian. The woman looked at Yi Xian. Are you trying to be low profile? Yi Xian. Xiao Ta said again, that's for sure. Under 3 moves who can kill my young master? Yi Xian was silent. He was a little embarrassed now, hearing Xiao Ta's words. The woman looked at Yi Xian and she looked at Yi Xian. Your young master doesn't seem very powerful. Xiao Ta wanted to say something but Yi Xian suddenly said, Xiao Ta, stop bragging. Xiao Ta was stunned and then said, young master, don't hide your strength. Get her. Let her sing conquer. Yi Xian. P.S. I'm asking for votes every day. Will you guys be annoyed? If it's annoying then I won't ask for votes, I'll ask for tips. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.